Dr. Ben.
Kind of thing that takes off.
Wow.
Yeah, that's Dr. Ben again, man. He had been away from comics for a long time, and now he's back. He's got these crazy colors.
Yes, I like.
Really great work. And some of it's like meta too, you know. It's got talking about Brubaker, Sean Phillips. This is like he is in this. He's the guy with the chops and the bald head there in the top right. So like, you know.
That's the Broob.
Yeah, his hat. Yeah, does Broob know about this? He would love this.
All right. Here we are. Excellent. Well, as I've reported online, we're here tonight with author, writer, playwright, musician, filmmaker, not a musician. Well,
could be, I guess.
Could be.
I mean, I was in a band in high school. We played a couple of shows. I was the lead singer. Then I quit.
Well, so yeah, you're a former musician.
Does that count? If I did 2 gigs?
Okay. Yeah, that works. Right. I did 1 comedy gig, and I consider myself
forever.
Yeah. So this is Kevin Strange. How are you doing tonight, sir? Like, I don't know if you have like an introduction or how you like to introduce yourself to people beyond my failed attempt there, but.
Well, I typically do my best to avoid telling people what I do because I live in a small Midwestern industrial town where people don't give a fuck about the kind of shit that we do. So typically they just know me as the weird Kevin guy. But my name is Kevin Strange. I am a 20-year veteran of extreme horror. I've written and directed and starred in 7 feature films, all distributed by Trauma Entertainment through their Trauma Now app. Watch.trauma.com, $4.99 a month, and the first month is free. I've also written 18 novels. I was nominated twice for the Wonderland Award for Excellence in Bizarro Fiction. I won a collegiate award for a short story that I wrote in a college magazine called the Peppermint Rooster Review. I won the Editor's Choice Award for a short story. And most recently, I've been writing and illustrating graphic novels set in the same Strangeville universe as the movies. I'm on my 4th graphic novel. My first one was a graphic novel adaptation of my short zombie comedy Dead Shit, which is a fan favorite in the of the Strange Heads, what I call my fans.
Right.
Strange Heads love Dead Shit. It stars 2 characters named Nixon and Hogan. And they're a couple of stoners, a couple of white trash stoners that live in the small, peaceful town of Strangeville, and they get into a lot of shenanigans. They're like my Jay and Silent Bob. They kind of weave their way in and out of not all of my stuff, but most of my stuff. And so my first graphic novel was Dead Shit. I then did a graphic novel sequel of my feature film Cockhammer called Cockhammer Lives, and that's a pretty good one. Set 10 years after the events of the film. And that one was what I considered to be my big graphic novel. My third one was a little shorter 64-page Halloween special called Nixon and Hogan's Horror Weed Halloween. That was a nice little Halloween tale. I've done a lot of Christmas themed stuff. I made a Christmas movie. I wrote a Christmas novelette, and I also did a Christmas one-shot comic book. I was like, I think it's time to move away from the Christmas holiday and go towards the more horror-oriented Halloween holiday. So Horror Weed Halloween is really good. I like it. It's shorter, it's 64 pages. But then over the last year, I've been working on Kevin Strange's Space Worms, which is 164 pages of absurd, wormy violence and occult horror. And it's funding now on Kickstarter. That's where that's kind of catches us up. That's 20 years of blood, sweat, and cum, sir.
20 years boiled down. Yeah.
Can I
you can say whatever you want.
Well, you don't want to give me that permission.
As long as I don't have to touch it, I'm fine. You know. Well, yeah. Let me. That's the other thing. That's the elephant in the room, or the worm in the room, if you will. Is
The worm in the brain.
yeah. Let me pull this back up here. The Kickstarter that you're doing is, here it is. Maybe. Excellent. Okay. So yeah, and you one of the things I like that you did was you went with just like the $500 goal, because you've already made the book. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's, in a sense, it's like a pre-order, but I think there's some sort of like legal differentiation with Kickstarters and crowdfunding situations where it's not, you know, the people are funding the artist, they're funding the art,
Not
and
the product. You're not pre-ordering a product. You're funding the
Right.
potential that a product is going to be made. But
exactly.
fuck that. I don't like to keep
Yeah.
the strange heads waiting.
Yeah,
What I've
yeah.
always done is I've always set the smallest goal, so that even if 10 motherfuckers all together want my book, all 10 of those motherfuckers are going to get my book. If 10,000 motherfuckers want my book, 10,000 of those motherfuckers are going to get my book. And I also absolutely hate people waiting on me. So I always, and from the very beginning, I've always finished the book before I've put it up as a crowdfunder, and that's not very common. So I always like to point that out,
Exactly.
that my books, the Strangeville Promise, is this book is finished and ready to print. All we're raising funds for is printing funds, and you will get this book within 5 weeks of the close of the campaign. And that 5-week window is literally just waiting for Kickstarter or Indiegogo or whoever to get their shit in order and give me the money. Because it, you know, sometimes it takes a while. Sometimes it takes a week. I've had it take 3.5 weeks before I got my money from Indiegogo at one point. And I don't have, you know, this is a 164-page graphic novel, full color. It's a pricey book. And I don't have the funds laying around to just put that, you know, just print that up front. I actually got an email a couple days ago from a guy who isn't comfortable with giving his credit card information to crowdfunding. And he was like, I'll give it to you through your store because I trust you, but I don't want to back this thing on Kickstarter. And I said, dude, I totally understand. And I will make sure you know, that there's enough copies left over that I'll be able to get one to you. But that's, you know, he asked me why I don't just put it up in the store. Why do you have to go through this third party? Why can't you just put it in the store? I said, buddy, it's going to cost hundreds of dollars to print this thing. That's not chump change that I just have up front that I can throw at a book that I don't know if it'll sell or not. So we go through the crowdfunding, but I do it as safely as possible. I never want to burn a strange head. I never want to make them feel like they paid for something and they didn't get absolutely as much out of that thing as they can. And that goes back. Go ahead.
I was gonna say that's one of the other things that, like, you know, like I said, like I love like your Beetle Brain book that you had, and numerous of the other fiction novels you've had. And one of the things that I've always enjoyed, just following you on social media and watching your progress and your, you know, everything that you're doing, all your creations, is like how prolific you are. So I mean, that's one of the things that, like, I also want to stress too, because how many times have you heard of like a Kickstarter that, you know, it meets its goal or it goes over it, and then you never hear from them. You know, years
or
go
it
by.
takes years. Yeah, it takes a couple of years. In some instances, I've got some guys. I don't say their names because it's not relevant, but some guys that I've followed their crowdfunding books, and they've completed 2 of 3 in a 3-book trilogy, and we're just left hanging on the 3rd book, and that really bothers me because we all funded the idea of 3 books. And yeah, the first 2 are fantastic. They're amazing books. They came out on time, but then you just left us hanging with the 3rd book. My Strangeville guarantee to my fans is you're not getting a part of Space Worms. This isn't a 3-book trilogy. This is the story. You get everything. Everything's completely done. I've spent the entire last year of my life every day working on this book to get out to you guys. And when you flip to the last page, that's it. You got the story. There's nothing left hanging out there for you, except for the next story, and they're all interconnected, but not in a way that they're like cliffhangers to the next book. Yeah, they're just
Right.
weird stories, and they're standalone weird stories that all take place in Strangeville, and then like themes will build from book to book, which I think are like cool Easter eggs. Like for example, I got this idea in my head for a restaurant called Strangeville Pizza and Weed. It's absolute
I
nonsense
like it.
that you're
I
gonna
love
buy.
it.
You're gonna buy your weed, and you're also gonna
I
order
love
pizza. Like,
pizza. You know this.
yeah, sit down with like a Pizza Hut style place, but you also have a weed hookah next to you. Like you could smoke weed in the restaurant, and you could also sit down and eat your fucking pizza munchie right there. And I thought it was great. And I've actually threatened to open this in real life, but I started working it into the stories I'm telling. So Strangeville Pizza and Weed appears in my newest the one that just finished. My newest webcomic is called Death to Strangeville, and it takes place out front of Strangeville Pizza and Weed. Well, the one shot comic I'm working on right now called Too Many Dabs, it actually takes place inside the Strangeville Pizza and Weed restaurant. So suddenly Strangeville Pizza and Weed has become this recurring location in the Strangeville universe, among other places like Nixon's house and things like that are staple locations of Strangeville. But yeah, so if you sort of work your way chronologically through my work, you'll see these Easter eggs, these themes and characters, and especially the language. The language of the movies and the comics are it's also fucking weird. And I will take these nonsensical turns of phrase, and and then all the characters over time will end up using these ridiculous phrases and these
Right.
and this cadence. And so as you sort of work your way chronologically through it, if you pay close attention, there's always new payoffs and callbacks. And because there's my very first feature film is called Dream Reaper, and it's a really bad feature length, but really bad, no budget, basically backyard horror comedy that was sort of my homage to the Nightmare on Elm Street films, where this really bad heavy metal band called Dream Reaper gets visited in their dreams by this actual character called the Dream Reaper, and he's pissed off that this shitty metal band has his name, and all the other supernatural characters are making fun of him back in the Nether realm because this shitty metal band is performing. So he tries to get them to change the name, and when they won't, he kills them one by one in their sleep. And I made that movie in 2006. So that movie is very old.
17 years? Is that?
17 years old. And in Space Worms, Willie Nutsack and Tiffany, the lead singer and bassist in Space Worms, they crawl out of hell, and they have this dialogue about how they've escaped. They've been in hell for like 10 centuries of hell time. And they were finally able to bribe their way out. And I won't spoil what happens to them, but it's not good and it's very quick. But that's a throwback to people that have followed my career all the way through my career. They're going to see the return of Dream Reaper 17 years later in a scene in Space Worm. So I'm always throwing little Easter eggs like that to the dedicated longtime Strangeheads. And there are a lot of people that have followed me from the very beginning and still support me to this day. And that's so crazy because I'm a no budget dude living in small town Illinois, and there is no reason anybody should pay me any attention. And I'm so blessed to have these dedicated Strangeheads that will literally follow me for 20 years. It's not a lot of them, not enough for me to live in a fucking mansion, but it's enough to keep me motivated to keep making this art.
Well, I was gonna say let's take a look at the trailer you did here, because this is the thing too, is that, I don't know how many of my viewers will know you. So I mean, I think one of the things that I really enjoy about your work, and you explaining it really puts it into work. It puts like what I've been thinking all this time into words, that you're visiting this world, this Strangeville, and it's kind of like a similar to how, like, who Charles Schultz is, the guy who drew Peanuts, right?
Peanuts, yeah.
He said that he put himself in all his characters, and the town that the Peanuts people live in. That's a character too, but all those characters were like little parts of him, and that's what really strikes me about your work, is that everything that you've been doing has you know, it's straight from Kevin Strange, right? You know, there's not, you know, it's not like a cookie cutter stuff. It's not, you're not going to find other Kevin Strange comics or comics that look like Kevin Strange. So for people that don't know what that is, I think showing them the trailer here is gonna end all their questions. It's going to show what exactly the ride they're in for. So
let's do it.
Let's.
The notorious Kevin Strange, two-time nominee for the Wonderland Award for Excellence in Bizarro Fiction, winner of the Best Film to Smoke To at the Tulsa Underground Film Fest, and 20-year veteran of extreme horror, returns with his most outrageous work to date, Kevin Strange's Space Worms. After a heinous meteor crash lands in the peaceful town of Strangeville, virgin losers Preston and Ethan are invited to a party by Esmeralda, the most popular girl in Strangeville High School. Now nothing can stop our hapless heroes from hooking up with the finest trim in town. Nothing except vicious, flesh-eating, brain-munching, horrifically sadistic space worms. 164 completed full-color pages of absurd sex, hard drugs, and brain-warming violence, written, penciled, inked, colored, and lettered by the only man depraved enough to unleash uncensored, balls-to-the-wall comic book mayhem like no other. Kevin Strange's Space Worms. Funding now only on Kickstarter.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. That's,
There you go. Welcome to Strangeville, motherfuckers.
I love it. It really, like, thinking about, like I said, like Peanuts and Charles Salt's, it really, it strikes me as kind of like the extreme horror version of Peanuts, you know, like,
I like that. I like that observation. And it is totally raw, unfiltered. Would you call it the id? I dropped out of college, so I'm not totally versed in psychology. I don't know the difference between the ego, the id, and the superego. But I believe it's the id is the sort of the sort of raw thrust of the personality, and this is all me. There's no filters. This stuff goes through a copy editor whose only job is to correct my typos in the dialogue bubbles. I write, I lay out, I pencil, I ink, I color, and I letter every single one of these books myself. And so you are, it's not common for graphic novelists to do the entire thing. And I'm inspired by creators like Charles Burns, who did Black Hole and a bunch of other crazy stuff. And
cover for Iggy Pop.
Yeah, Daniel Klaus, who did Ghost World, and Frank Miller. These guys who sort of have their own unique vision and can tell long form comic book stories that way. Doug TenNapel, obviously the Earthworm Jim creator, does everything. Well, he doesn't do the coloring himself, but he does. Catherine Garner does the coloring for his work, and she's great. But he does the writing and the penciling and inking. He's a big influence. Ethan Nicole, who did Axe Cop,
All right, right. The
He's a big influence. He had a webcomic called Bearmageddon. I don't know if you ever caught that webcomic. It's
No,
crazy.
no.
It's a bunch of weird bears with chainsaw arms and bears with like octopus tentacles and just crazy shit. But he has a real cartoony. He was a mentor of Doug, and then Doug was sort of he wasn't mentored by, but he was really influenced by the um, creator of Calvin and Hobbes. What's his name?
Bill Watterson.
Bill Watterson.
Yeah.
So they have they kind of I look at comic book artists, and you kind of look where the branches, like where they what branches they come from, and sort of
Right.
me and Doug and Ethan all kind of come from the Bill Watterson branch. And you look at somebody like Frank Miller and Frank Frazetta, they come from the what's his name, the fucking Marvel Comics dude that worked with Stan Lee. Why is his name escaping me?
Kirby.
Yeah, Kirby. The Jack Kirby school of sort of blocky,
Right.
blocky characters, and they come from the Jack Kirby school. We come from the Bill Watterson school, and there's a few other branches. Are you familiar with cartoonist kayfabe and Ed Piskor? Ed Piskor comes from the what school?
I was thinking
Kubert
kind
school,
of like
Joe Kubert school. So he sort of comes from the
Right.
Joe Kubert branch. So there's a few branches that you can sort of base your style on, and I based my cartoony style on the Bill Watt. I don't know if it shows through. If my stuff looks like Calvin and Hobbes, I don't think it does. But sort of everyone's got the big eyes, the unrealistic looking
Right.
eyes, and very cartoony hands and fingers and gestures. Everything is very very cartoony. It's not meant to be
Right.
it's not meant to be realistic, and it doesn't come from the Jack Kirby sort of heroic blocky style either. But yeah, I'm very influenced by the guys who do it all themselves. And Charles Schultz was one of those dudes, but he did strips, not graphic novels.
Right.
But he did it all himself.
Well, I mean, that's the thing too, is like there is such a difference between how you tell a story, whether in strip form or like you're doing with a whole graphic novel, where you're leading the reader through each page from panel to panel. Is it going to be, if you only have a strip that comes out once a week or a daily or whatever, it's only 4 panels that you have to keep someone's attention.
Or one. There's dudes that can do it in one, which is nuts. Who's our guy? Far
Side guy. That's who I always think of.
Well, yeah, there's that guy. I'm thinking of the dude that does right-leaning political cartoons. Who's really fucking good. He's really he's good, but I'm thinking of the other one. Alexopoulos, is that his name?
Sure.
His last name? He did the one where Joe Biden touches the black girl and says, "If you didn't vote for me, you ain't black," and he turns her white.
I didn't see that one. I thought that was just a true life story. I remember seeing that.
Well, there's they do those single panels, and man, it's hard to tell a story in one panel, dude.
Yeah. No, I tried back when I first started making comics. It was back in like 2011, and I tried to do a lot of like single panel stuff. My comic was called Zombie Bin Laden, and like every day was, I think I was covering it was the Republicans were having primaries because Obama was just going for re-election, and I was just every day, and they had it was like was that Michelle Bachmann? She was just every day she had something that was just ridiculous that she'd say that like, but even I found trying to do just one panel was so, I always feel like I had to like put like a million words in there in order to tell like a story. Right. So I mean, being able to do, I can't think of the Far Side guy's name. Gary Larson. That's it. With him, like you think of like any one of his where it's just one image. It's
And often one sentence.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like there's like you think of that one with that's got the kid and he's trying to get into the school for the gifted, and it's like the door says push and he's pulling on it, or it says pull and he's pushing on it. Like it just in that one image, it's like just this whole like joke that you could see the whole thing. You laugh about it because you could see that, and it's like, I don't know how you even do that. How do you figure out how to do not to say that telling a long form story is easy in any way either. That's
What's weird is it's easier for me. If you give me 164 pages, I'll tell you whatever you want to hear. You tell me I have 4 pages to work with, I sweat it. I can't tell a 4-page story, dude. I've been in a couple of anthology magazines, underground comics magazines, and they limit me to 4 pages, and it's like, God, so hard. And then when I'm done, I'm like, this isn't good. This is just, I did it, but it's not good. But you give me as much fucking time as I need. You let me run all that rope out to hang myself with, and I will be dangling from it at the end. I promise. I'll use up every one of those fucking pages. I don't know why that is. It's easier for me to tell big, long, stupid stories than short ones.
Well, I mean, you think about it in terms of like in like video, whether the difference between a movie and TV shows. It's you're always just presented with different problems. To tell like a story over a season of a TV show is an entirely different thing than having 2 hours to tell your whole story. And it's
For sure.
That's what I'm saying.
I have a few short story collections. I've probably written and published maybe like 30 short stories. And it is always such a different, you have to take your brain to a completely different place to tell a short story compared to a novel. And I pretty much would always, like, if I'm going to do a short story, I have to contain it within one scene. I'm just telling you, if it's going to be 15 pages, it's going to be one scene. I'm going to tell you that one thing that happens. And if it ends up becoming, well, this happened in this location, and then because of that, we have to jump to this location and these multiple characters and this, I'm going to turn it into a novella. I'm going to make it 100 pages. If it's either going to be 15 pages or 100 plus pages, because I can't tell a bunch of little things that happen in just a paragraph. I have experimented and tried that. I have this one story. I can't remember the name of it, but it's basically this girl is in a sensory deprivation tank, and they're like feeding her images into her brain from wired up connections, and she's experiencing all these different scenes that take place. And that was me. I got this little bug in my fucking house here. It's fucking with me, but I challenged myself.
Do the worms? What happens with the worms? Like, tell us. So we see. I'm looking at the page now.
You're looking at some serious brainwormy action right now. So these space worms, they at the very very first scene of the book, Kevin Strange's Space Worms, they come crash landing on a meteor, which is the whole thing is an homage to Fred Decker's Night of the Creeps. If you've seen that movie, classic horror comedy film that involves brain slugs, James Gunn's Slither was a sort of an homage to Night of the Creeps, and that it's like, again, these space worms come down and just start wreaking havoc on us. They're parasites. So these little space worms right here, these little wormy guys, these are space parasites, and they have one goal, one thing on their mind at all times. The only thing they care about is finding a host organism and eating its fucking brains, and then using it as a sort of carrier host to facilitate eating even more brains, because they're little tiny things, dude. They're this big, and they're inside your brain. So they use a corpse to, a reanimated corpse to walk themselves around to find more brains. They can't just, they're too little to get from place to place, and they have enormous appetites for brains. So they have to use us for locomotion and keep our fucking corpse running while they munch on us. And they have the ability to transform our body parts into weapons. and so they can savage other bodies to get to the brains faster by making knife weapons or projectile flesh or whatever they need to do with our bodies in order to facilitate more brain eating. So the story of space worms, as we talked about in the trailer, is these two virgin losers, Preston and Ethan, are invited to their neighbor Esmeralda's butt fuck party on Friday night. And the only way she's gonna let them in is if they get her the biggest bag of weed that'll keep everybody high all night long. She doesn't have the weed connect for the weekend, so she tells them, if you guys can get a hold of weed, you're invited to the biggest butt fuck party of the year, sons. So of course they're into it because Preston, their actual neighbor, Ethan's his buddy. Preston's had a crush on her for years, and he wants to get up in that anus as fast as he can.
This is Esmeralda here.
This is Esmeralda here. Yes. This is the baddest bitch in Strangeville. Look at them titties.
And and I'll say, she is responsible, as she says. We kick it responsibly. When she says they want
you got to put your keys. Yeah, you got to put your keys in a fishbowl, and you can't have those keys till in the morning. And at any responsible butt fuck party, you get a bottle of lube with free bottle of lube upon entrance, because we don't want blown out O-rings and prolapsed anuses at our butt fuck parties. I don't know about your butt fuck parties. My butt fuck parties involved.
But I have had that problem nonetheless. So I'll have to check out the the prolapsed anus. And this is am I right in thinking that is the two? I'm horrible with names. So
no, these are just two random party goers that are snorting coke at the party. This is we're sort of working our way. This page is sort of working us into the party itself and sort of showing us all the players that are going to be at this party. And see, while this party is going on, while the biggest butt fuck party of the year is going on, sir, these space worms have landed and invaded Strangeville, and they are making their way to this party.
Well,
unbeknownst to our party or to our butt fuckers and butt fuckies, there's serious danger lurking, heading face first towards their brain first, towards their little party, towards their soiree.
Well, see, I guess that's my other question, and is how do the worms? They're going for the brain, so are they just going through the ear canal, or is it just whatever way, being
they have
a butt fucking party?
They have crazy sharp teeth. They could go through the anus. Those would be butt worms. Okay. If they did that often, they would be known as butt worms. You don't want those either. But they have they have 3 rows. I think in the trailer it showed one of the worms with 3 rows of very, very sharp shark-like teeth. Not there. I mean, you can see them chomping in there, but you see if you scroll down.
I'm gonna go back up to the trailer here because I played it before and I just went to the full screen. I should be able to just play it.
So if you scroll to about the 3/4 mark, you should see a full-on.
Those have to be our guys.
Yeah, that's Preston and Ethan right there.
Okay,
based on 2 of my real-life friends, Preston and Ethan, by the way, who are such characters. I told them, you motherfuckers are starring in my next fucking comic book. And true to my word, I put them in there. So if you pause it right there, if you go back to that last panel.
Yeah.
One more. Go back one more panel. One more forward. Nope. See, now we're
getting discombobulated.
Yeah.
This is what happens.
Here. Nope.
Okay.
We went a little further. Well, anyway, in that shot, you can see the worms eating their way literally right here, literally through the man's face.
Oh, okay.
So they get to the brain in a myriad of ways, but in this opening scene is where we meet the space worms. This poor man, literally, they eat through his face and get right to the brain.
Okay, so they already know what they're going for. I love that. I like it. You know what they also remind me a lot of is if you ever saw those Mad Balls.
Yeah,
they were like the toys. They remind me a lot of those, but like
early 90s.
More of a worm form than a ball form. But
okay, yeah, I dig it.
That's what I'm saying. Like I love it because it's just it's like or Garbage Pail Kids too.
These are all influences, like the gross out 90s. Obviously, I'm a 90. I was born in the 80s. I was a teenager. I grew into adulthood throughout the 90s. So that gross out era of Mad Balls and and Garbage Pail Kids and the like, Slime, and all that stuff. Then even Ninja Turtles toys had a real gross.
Oh yeah.
Like they had some of the characters, not Garbage Man. What is that character's name? Muckman, where you can put the
Yeah. There was the
slime in through his
Muckman.
head,
Yeah.
and he's like made of garbage.
I remember
But
that.
so
Yeah,
yeah,
the
that
big
gross out
foot.
stuff.
I remember that.
Yeah, the big. It was a manhole cover. But
Yes.
yeah, all that's embedded in my brain, and that's where I could draw from. That and horror comedy movies from the '80s, because another staple of '80s horror comedy was small creature movies like Charles
Right.
Band's Puppet Master, the little puppets, or Critters, or Gremlins, or fucking, there's so many iterations of small creature movies from the '80s. And
Hell
I
yeah.
gave each, there's three worms that land on Earth in Space Worms, and I give them all three personalities, different looks and different personalities, so that you sort of come to they become almost endearing as the book progresses in just their sheer
Okay.
they get so offended when someone doesn't want them to eat their brain. they have just this endless compulsion to eat brains that they actually somehow believe it's like a moral duty to eat brains, and they talk about different planets that they've conquered. So it's not just they didn't just come here, like they travel the fucking universe eating eating brains on every inhabited
Brains.
planet they can find.
I take it. Well, I mean, if you don't eat, you can't. That's
It.
If they didn't eat brains, they would.
They
I
would
would
die.
assume they'd die. Yeah.
A
So,
closed mouth doesn't get fed, sir.
so one of the things I just thought of too is the like the Toxic Avenger and the whole trauma level of films, and that's something else that you're involved with too.
Well,
let me see.
growing up, I was relentlessly bullied for being into weird movies and comic books and drawing and stuff like that. It was because back in the '90s. And how old are you?
I am 44.
Okay, so we're almost the exact same age.
Yeah.
So you know that back in the late '80s and early '90s, what was the only thing people cared about in culture? Fucking sports. It was basketball, and to a lesser extent, baseball were the big sports in the '90s. And so when you were a kid, or I was a kid growing up, all the other kids around me wore basketball jerseys and only cared about Michael Jordan, because I'm from Illinois, so it was the Chicago Bulls was the big basketball team around here. But that is literally all anybody cared about. Teenage kids, they wore No Fear shirts. You remember No Fear? And they wore the trendy jerseys. They wore the the trendy stuff, and I didn't have any. I was poor. I grew up poor as fuck. I couldn't afford the cool shoes. I couldn't afford the sports jerseys, and all I did was I loved comics and horror movies, and so I would literally be chased home from school, and I would duck into the fucking mom and pop video store and wait for the bullies to get bored and leave, and I would rent movies. And even though we were poor, one thing I did have a color TV and a VCR in my bedroom. So privately, I was able to rent anything I wanted and then go into my room privately and watch it. So I rented, there was a time in the early 90s where Troma and Full Moon released movies monthly. They had 12 to 24 movies a year that would come out. So if you go to search there, if you go to that search function and type my name in.
How do we?
And then type in Kevin Strange. Director, go down to director.
Oh, okay. Is that it? Yeah, that's what I was.
I'm probably not in the featured directors. I wouldn't think.
Let me try. Oh, so I think I couldn't figure out where the search box was.
There you go.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. Is like, what do we do to find your movies on here? And there's Nixon and Hogan Smoke Christmas. Yep. Excellent. Ratso episode 2. That's you as well.
I don't know what that is. I have no idea what that is. I don't know why I'm connected to it, but good. Maybe I'm in it. Maybe I'm in it and I don't know it.
Wait, it says Home on the Strange, so you could have a colony over there, I guess.
Good. Maybe it's an AI. Maybe it's an AI version of me. Nixon and Hogan meet Satan.
Everyone's got
Stiff
to.
Jobs. Stiff Jobs is the prequel of Cockhammer, by the way.
Hour and 3 minutes, hour and 11 minutes.
Got to get in and get out.
Only 15 minutes for Meeting Satan, though. But
Yeah, that's a short. That and Dead Shit are short films, and everything else are features.
I love it though, because that's what I'm saying is that you're not, that's the other thing I've seen with just creative people in general is people that come in and they have a huge idea. It's going to change the world and this and that, and they're telling you all about it, and it never happens. It never comes around. They never.
Or even more tragically, they do put it together and it's terrible, and it comes and goes, and then they disappear and they move on to the next. And I tend to consider, well, it's harsh to say because it's a harsh word, but a lot of those guys are grifters. A lot of those guys get into independent film and they think they're going to become wealthy and successful. And independent film takes a lot of time and a lot of patience. And honestly, it takes a lot of talent. I don't have a lot of talent, but I've got a lot of tenacity and a lot of patience to get the work done. And I think it makes up for my lack of talent. And so I can do all this and release all these things from sheer tenacity, sheer fucking willpower. I refuse to take no for an answer, and I solve my problems. Every film has so many problems from the word go, and a lot of people can't handle it. A lot of people cannot handle solving those problems. They think it's going to be a joyride. I just watched this fucking crazy behind the scenes documentary on James Cameron's The Abyss. Dude, that seems like it was. There's like a list of top 10 hardest movies for the crew to work on, and that's not included in that list. I think it should be. I think it's overlooked as one of the most difficult film shoots of all time. The stuff that crew and cast went through is horrific. And people see a movie like that and think, oh, that's just, if you have the money, you can make a Hollywood film. No, anybody but James Cameron would have given up on that fucking project because it was excruciating, grueling. And all my films here were grueling. These are all labors of love. They all require so much grit and guts from my and it's mostly my friends from around here in this little small town, and they just believed in my vision, believed in my excitement. And my key to success that I always tell aspiring filmmakers is I never made my crew do anything I wasn't willing to do. So I have full frontal nude scenes in most of these movies. If I'm going to ask actresses to get naked, I'm going to make sure they know that I'm willing to get naked too. And a lot of my other male co-stars, there's a lot of full frontal. There's a lot of dicks in my movies. There's a lot of dicks in my comic books, but there's a lot of dicks in my movies. And I made sure to put a bunch of dicks in there to make the girls feel like they weren't being exploited, or if they were being exploited, so were the rest of us. And I act in all my movies. I play the titular Cockhammer character, and also Hogan in Cockhammer. And dude, to be the director, the writer, and 2 starring roles in a movie is the hardest shit I've ever fucking had to endure. And that's why I always tell people, like, if you're just getting into Strangeville and you want to know what's the starting point, there's so much of it. Because there's one thing about a prolific creator is it's intimidating to know where to start when there's so many things. And I always tell people, just jump into Cockhammer. Cockhammer will tell you everything you need to know about Strangeville and about the characters. And if you enjoy it, you can go backwards to Stiff Jobs and Dead Shit. You can go forwards to Cockhammer Lives, the graphic novel. There's so many different jumping off points from Cockhammer. And I think it's the best thing I've ever done until I did Space Worms. And that's not just because it's my newest thing that I'm working on. I do believe that if I died tomorrow, the 2 things art-wise that I would want to be remembered for are Cockhammer and Space Worms.
Cockhammer and Space Worms are the key. The key to
those are Kevin Strange's top Strangeville picks.
And all of the movies are in the same universe. Am I understanding that right? So it's all
takes place in Strangeville. Nixon and Hogan appear in almost everything. And they all, and again, like the Dream Reaper here on the right at the bottom, that band shows up in Space Worms. So they're all little sort of puzzle pieces that connect everything to everything else. And so the really hardcore Strange heads will pour through the entire Strangeville catalog and sort of find it all. And it all just expands further. I have a card game, dude. Strangeville Smokeweed, the card game that has it's a collectible card game like Magic the Gathering. It's out of print right now.
Oh, okay.
It's out of print. I did an Indiegogo for it, and then it went out of print. Unfortunately, I'm going to do a Kickstarter for it. Probably the next thing I do after Space Worms is probably going to be a relaunch reprint of Strangeville Smokeweed, the card game. But it's got all these characters from the movies, and it's got all the characters from the comic books, and it's like Magic the Gathering with fucking Strangeville characters. At this point there's over 150 characters in that card game set with all the expansions. It's got 4 expansions to it, including the core deck, and there's over 150 Strangeville characters in that card game.
I love it. See, that's what I'm saying. Like, I love that it's just it. The other thing it reminds me of, you just talking about, writing, directing, starring in the movie too, is of course you have to be a fan of Ed Wood. I mean, there's no way we'd have to end the stream if you told me you were not a fan of Ed Wood.
Yeah, no, he's a perfect example of someone that's just tenacious and gets the fucking job done and doesn't really care if it's good or not. And it's not that I don't care if it's good or not. It's that I am limited to what I have in front of me. I'm not a trust fund kid. I didn't grow up in an entertainment family. I'm not like Charles Band and inherit an entire fucking movie studio, Empire Pictures, from his father, which is not saying anything bad against Charlie. I like Charlie a lot personally. I'm trying to get him to make a Space Worms movie, but and he isn't necessarily opposed to the idea. But he did inherit a whole studio from his dad, and he made it better. He's far better of a creative mind than his father was. But sometimes that's what it takes to really get big. And I don't have any of that. So if my stuff isn't the best thing you've ever seen, it's because I'm a fucking poor white trash from the middle of Illinois, dude. I don't have the resources to make a big slick production. You get what you fucking get from me. And all I can tell you is I put my entire fucking cock and balls into that thing. Cock, balls, taint, and asshole into that production. And that's all I can do for you. I can't do anything else. That's the best I can do. And people who have interviewed me in the past have asked me things like, if you're out $1 million, what would you do? I always tell them the same thing. I'd make $1 million of the shit that I make. This is what I love to do.
More stuff.
This is what I love to do. I love low budget movies. Trauma inspired me. I watched when I was 20, I watched Toxic Avenger 4, Citizen Toxie, and there's a feature-length documentary called Apocalypse Soon that sort of chronicles the chaos of the making of Toxic Avenger 4, and where basically Trent Hega, one of the he's the assistant director and one of the stars of the movie, basically has to hold the whole thing together and be the sort of middleman between this absolutely befuddled cast and crew and Lloyd Kaufman, who is an insane man. And Trent Hega had to translate Lloyd Kaufman into normal people speak to try to hold this thing together, and it was held together by fucking gum and duct tape, dude. Like there's no reason that movie should have turned out as anything. And I watched that and I was like, oh my God, this is punk rock guerrilla filmmaking. This is whatever you have on hand, use it to make art. And however it comes out is however it fucking comes out. It's going to be raw. It's going to be dirty. It's going to have the seams are going to show. It's going to rip and tear in places. And, I also come from the school of Roger Corman. Roger Corman famously would go, he taught himself to make movies in several days. A week would be his longest production when he was making those Edgar Allan Poe movies with Vincent Price. And when he sort of expanded and fell more into the producer role than the director role, he would show up on these young green guys. He would hire them to shoot him a movie in 4 days. And he would show up on set with a stopwatch, and he would time how long it took the crew to set up the shot and start filming. And he would lose his fucking mind if they took too long. And he would teach these guys, shoot the entire script, everything that takes place in this location from this angle. You do it in this setup. Don't you dare shoot this scene and then break down and go over to another angle and shoot the other direction and then break back down and set up over here. It'll take months to make this movie if you do it that way. he would teach them to shoot everything from this angle, then break down, reset up, and shoot everything from this angle. And he would teach his dudes to make movies in just a couple of days. And James Cameron was actually one of his students. He cut trailers for Roger Corman as his first film job. And when he got work as a special effects artist on Galaxy of Terror, he implemented all of his, and that was a Roger Corman production. He produced it, but James Cameron ended up taking over, basically becoming the director to make that shoot, and he made everything from nothing. He built all the sets and all the monsters and everything with garbage. Literally, would go out to the garbage, to the trash cans, and he would bring stuff in and build the sets with it. And I don't know if you've ever seen Galaxy of Terror. It's got Sid Haig and it's got Freddy Krueger, Robert Englund in it. And it is a fucking awesome movie. And also, another fun fact about this movie, James Cameron took a ton of that stuff from the sets and recycled it and reused it on Aliens. Aliens is a ripoff of Galaxy of Terror, which is a low-budget Roger Corman movie.
I'm gonna have to check this out.
It's a great movie.
The thing I thought about too is, having a huge budget, having millions of dollars to put into making a movie, and having years to make it, and huge stars. I think we're seeing kind of like a reaction against that come around lately, where you have all these movies that cost $200 million, $305 $1 billion or whatever to produce, and there's nothing there. There's not that heart. There's not they're movies by committee. They're movies by a corporate committee.
Exactly. And yet it shows in the final product. There's no soul to those films.
But and the thing those too is, you look at someone like James Cameron, he does have millions of dollars, does have this huge budget, and he's got that heart, he's got that tenacity to to work to get his vision across, so that it's not, I'm sure he has fights with the producers or whoever in his stuff, but he's able to still come across with something that's worthwhile. Whereas, like we said, like you just said, corporate committee movies, they're just like the new Indiana Jones or whatever. The Flash failed horribly. They're all, this summer, all of the blockbusters are failing, which is like you said, it's a testament to people who want to be told good stories again, and they want that passion back in film, which is why I have no sympathy for the Writers Guild right now. They're crying about boo-hoo. They said they want to wait us out until we run out of money. It's like, you are the worst era of Hollywood writers there's ever been, and you're not poor. Don't tell me making $600,000 a year makes you poor, motherfucker. Just because you own a mansion in the Hollywood Hills and 6 sports cars. Yeah, that's expensive. Yeah, you need to be bringing in a fucking $1 a quarter in order to pay your bills. I don't give a fuck, dude. I don't care. You suck. You make terrible movies. I hope you never get your jobs back. Sorry, I have no sympathy for him at all. But I guess we should be talking about the Troma movies here. But yeah, last year I got, a dream came true for me. All of my no-budget little backyard, Midwestern white trash, Southern Illinois movies all got picked up by Troma Now for distribution here. And that's where you're at. You're sitting on the Troma Now site. And all of my films, they picked up all of my films for distribution. And right now on my just Monday, we started we premiered the Troma Comes to Strangeville webcomic on my webcomic site. I do what's called the Strangeville Comic Archive, which is basically over the years. Yes, here you go. You got it. You're a great host. You got everything on top
together.
Of it, man.
Yeah.
So
just Monday,
I've got the big budget, is what it is.
Yeah. I see that. Troma Comes to Strangeville is a mini fan comic I made to promote my films being picked up by Troma here, and I handed out a ton at conventions over the last couple of years, but only in black and white form. No one's ever seen it in color. So just starting on Monday, and then today we dropped this page 1 here, and this is just a little mini comic that tells the story of the Strangeville crew: Kevin Strange, Joshua Montoya, who plays Nixon, the pumpkin monster, who's the mascot for Strangeville.
Fucking here,
And
man. Right.
what's that?
Oh, I just read Joshua. I can't.
Joshitsuo is his name. Joshitsuo.
Joshitsuo. I love that. Get the fuck in here, man. Yeah, see that's why I wanted to be able to show people. That's what I'm saying. Like I was looking through here and I was just like, this is exactly what people love, is just to be able to see someone. And I'm gonna have to say that I disagree with your earlier statement where you said that you don't have talent or anything, because obviously trauma picking you up, you continue to have your friends continue to star in your movies, join you for all these things. So I mean, don't sell yourself short, man. Like that's where I want to disagree with you. It's to say like you've definitely, me watching you, I've, like I said, I've just been impressed by the sheer output that you have. Like I never see like Kevin Strange online saying, hey, give me some money, give me a GoFundMe, I need some money to pay my dentist bill or this. You're out there constantly producing, you're constantly telling your stories, and
there's never been a year in 20 years that I haven't had a new product, a new story, a new Strangeville story out there to pick up, whether it be a comic or a novel or a film. It's been 20 solid fucking years of cranking this stuff out, and it will continue as long as my health
right.
holds up. I will continue to do it, and when my health fails, all that's going to do is slow me down a little bit. It might take me a couple of years to get something out, but I will be doing this until the day I die. This is who I am. This is what I do. This is my entire life is dedicated to Strangeville. It's a weird cult, and the Strange Heads, the Strange Heads are my my flock. They're my cultists, and we sort of all believe in this together. And I'm blessed to have the few that I have, And I say that I don't have a lot of talent because I don't think I do have a lot of talent, but I put everything I have into it. So this page right here that's as good as I could do that page. That's Kevin Strange, Joshitsuo, Timmy with the boils, and the Pumpkin Monster sitting down to watch Cockhammer, the Cockhammer premiere on Trauma Now, which has already happened. This was a long time ago,
right.
But I wanted to put this comic out and sort of give everybody the color version of it on the archive. And what the Strangeville Comics archive was kind of inspired by another dude that's an influence of mine, and another guy that did everything himself, and that's Dave Sim in Cerebus. Yeah. He's been over the last 20 years, he has been archiving every single page of Cerebus, and there's 3,000 pages of it. So the archive here will take you to
okay.
You can scroll down and see all the different comics that are available.
Dead Shit,
so Dead Shit issue 1, issue 2,
issue 3. See, that's what I'm saying, is that that's what I mean, is like I'm not alone. There's lots of people that they love to be able to see someone just put their brain out on paper or computer screen or video or film or what, or music. Like maybe turn back to the band. That might be we want
I'm a big fan of the band Static X and Wayne Static, and he was able to, before he passed, he was able to put out a record called Pig Hammer that he did everything on. He did all the vocals, all the guitars, he used a drum machine, and he produced the whole thing himself. And when you listen to Pig Hammer, it's like, that is, because there's not a lot. There's like Trent Reznor. There's only a few people who, in music, are the singular, because music is a very collaborative effort. And so is comics for some reason, and obviously so is film. But I'm a big fan of prolific creators who have a singular vision for their art. I'm not a big, like I said, growing up I was bullied a lot. I didn't have a lot of friends. The friends and family that were kind of the closest thing I could say to close to me often betrayed me, often humiliated me to other family members or to other friends, joined in on the bullying, and I grew to not trust anyone. And so I did have to trust all of my people to make films, but it was only a couple of people. There are not a lot of people that helped me make those films. It was a very small cast and crew, and I basically had to, initiate them into the cult of strange and brainwash them and make them, believe that my vision was the true vision in order to get them to
Hallelujah.
basically just be little puppets on my strings that did what I told them to do. And there was no real arguing over whether we were going to do what we were going to do or not. And I ran into a huge problem when I became a fiction publisher, because not only did I start writing fiction, but I wanted to do like a record label, like a band that gets semi-successful. They'll sort of pay it back by bringing up other indie bands that don't necessarily have that reach, and sort of put them on and showcase them. And I decided I wanted to take my success with the films and sort of and grab these indie authors that maybe they've never published anything or just published a couple things, and use all of my marketing savvy and the ability to go to conventions and all of this sort of Strangeville machine that I'd built over the years. I wanted to pay that forward and give that to some authors. And brother, it didn't take any time before those people turned on me. Right. And to this day, I say writer. I always say I've dealt with actors. I've dealt with musicians. I've dealt with everybody in the artistic spectrum, and the worst motherfuckers to deal with are fiction writers. They're some of the most catty, selfish, egotistical little motherfuckers there are, and they fucked me over so bad that I literally quit publishing. I quit writing fiction, dude. I stopped writing books because writers are such cunts, and I switched to making comics, which was the original thing I wanted to do. Like as an 8-year-old kid, I remember, just wanting nothing more than to be a comic book artist. Comics was the thing. And Image Comics, 1992, the Image Comics boom, the Max, Pitt, Spawn, Youngblood, fucking Strike Force. Was it Strike Force? What was the name of
Bloodstrike?
Bloodstrike.
Yeah. I've got
Hey,
the
look,
Max.
the Max is my favorite. The Max is my favorite all-time comic. And it's not a singular vision. It's William Mesner Loeb's and Sam Keith that made that book happen. But boy, does it feel like one singular, they mesh together so well that it feels like it's one guy, just one vision, one weird fucking world. That's my favorite comic book of all time.
Oh my gosh.
And I was probably 12 when I read that, and it imprinted as strongly as Trauma movies did. So I switched. So when my career in fiction imploded, I went to the thing I naturally always wanted to do, and I taught myself, because I always tell the story of I switched high schools in midstream. I did my freshman and sophomore year in one town, and then I was pulled to a different town for my junior and senior year, and I basically was like trying to become a comic book artist. And so I took a lot of art classes and sort of leaned on my art teachers. And when I got to my junior year and this new art teacher at this new school, I basically walked in with my sketchbook and all proudly dropped it down and said, I don't think I should be in art 1. I already took art 1 at the last school. I think I should be in art 2. And he did this. Yeah, you're where you need to be. And that motherfucker fucked with me. He was so harsh on me, and he had his little clique already of guys that could draw just like Todd McFarlane and like Jim Lee, just like fucking all those guys. And he had his clique. He had his 5 kids that he was pushing to have art careers, and he wanted nothing to fucking do with me, dude. And and I let it destroy me, and I quit drawing. After I took his art classes, I quit drawing. And so from 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23 years old, I drifted aimlessly and didn't do anything, and just drugs, womanizing, lots of drugs and alcohol. Took a ton of acid, which probably is why my stuff looks the way it looks. I have this belief that once you take acid, you never come out of that trip. Once you take acid, you're in there, and you just sort of normalize it. You just sort of come to accept that this is reality now. And I took acid like 100 times. And
it's just like prying your third eye open, regardless of whether it's ready or not.
To this day, maybe that's why I'm drawn to hats like this. To this day, that third eye is extremely, extremely open. and why my stuff looks all psychedelic and weird and fucked up like it does. I like to say that my art style is as though you visited a serial killer in an insane asylum, and he's been allowed to draw comics the entire time he's been in there. That's the style that I'm going for. And I guess he was a big fan of Bill Watterson because that's the sort of branch that he came from.
Right.
But yeah, it wasn't until I was 23 that I really found film, the language of film, because I worked at a video store from the time I was 19 till I was 25, and everybody I worked with at the video store all had their stories about how they went to film school and they had this little short film here or there, and we were, it was the 90s, man. It was the era of the indie talkies. It was Tarantino, it was Kevin Smith, it was what's his name from Slacker, and fucking Linklater, Richard Linklater.
Okay. I was gonna say Spike Lee, but I don't know.
Spike Lee as well. They were all talkies, they all were dialogue heavy indie movies, and so everybody thought they could be that guy. And it turned out that even though I had never done anything artistic or written anything up to that point, I turned out to have that natural gift of gab. And when I sat down and was like, okay, if all these motherfuckers think they're writers, well, I'm gonna, can write movies and be little indie filmmakers. I'm gonna sit down and see what I can do. And I realized very quickly that dialogue came so fucking naturally to me that I was one of the talkie guys. I was a Kevin Smith. I was a Quentin Tarantino. It just flows out of my fingertips and never stops. I have never stopped fucking writing. I've from the time I was 23, I'm now 43, so 20 years. I have never stopped writing fucking dialogue, and I never tire of it. I've never had writer's block. I've never had a moment where I said, I wonder what I should do next. I don't know what my next project will be. I always have 5 things that I want to do next, and it pains me to pick the next one because that means the other 4 have to wait. And there's going to be 5 more by the time I get to those. And, I've got this intergalactic wrestling comic right now that I've been typing on, and it'll be years. If I'm blessed enough to continue working years from now, it'll be years before I get to that book, but I can't stop writing on it because I want to make a wrestling comic so bad. I'm such a pro wrestling fan. On top of all that shit, I am such a pro wrestling fan. I've been watching pro wrestling since I was a little kid. I continue to watch it to this day. Me and my buddies get together and drink whiskey and watch the WWE pay-per-views on the weekends when they happen. And and wrestling comics are its own little subculture of, there's like you got to be a special motherfucker to make a wrestling comic, and I want to join that very small crew of dudes who have made a wrestling comic. And it kills me that I have so many things in front of me that I have to do before I get to it. But that's the brain of a Kevin Strange. I never have writer's block. I have writers hurry up and get to it. I've never ran out of things to say. I was at a convention one time and I screened my film Stiff Jobs, which is a heavy talkie. It's maybe my talkiest movie of all of my movies. And this fan we let come in the hotel room and watch with us, and we're all drinking and getting drunk. And the film ends, and it's so fucking talky, dude. Nobody shuts up in that fucking movie. It's like 100 minutes, and it's 100 solid minutes of dialogue. It's relentless dialogue. And then the credits start, and I fucking have these paragraph explanations of like, and thanks to so-and-so for letting us use his house. Without you, we wouldn't have been able to shoot this scene and that scene. And this fan starts rolling, dude, tears coming out of his eyes. He's like, you still won't shut the fuck up. You made this whole motherfucking movie and you're still talking in the fucking credits. And I was like, that's who I am, dude. That's who I am as a person. And like, you give me a platform like this and I never shut up. I was at a film festival recently, and I screened Nixon and Hogan Meet Satan. It's 15 minutes long. They asked me if I wanted to talk about the movie after it was done. I stood up there for 45 minutes talking about a 25-minute movie.
I love it. See, that's what I'm saying though. That's what I think people like to see, is that there's not a way to contain just your excitement, your just devotion to the cult of Strange. I mean, like you're the number one proponent
biggest
for
fan. Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what I'm saying. That's what comes across in all of these is just just that love, that just devotion to putting putting it out there, telling the story, telling jokes, telling, you know, horrific stories. I mean, let's think about it. You know, having three worms burrow through your forehead into your brain, it is horrific. I mean, you know, like,
Oh yeah.
I forgot to play this earlier, but it'll lead into, I've got a good story. You'll see.
I got worms.
I beg your pardon?
That's what we're going to call it. I got worms. We're going to specialize in selling worm farms. You know, like ant farms.
I love it.
It's like an ant farm, but for worms. It's like one of I won't mention her name, but one of my prior girlfriends, we had we'd been together, and it seems like I remember seeing something on her ass, and
I love it already.
And I'm like, and she must have seen me, you know, it was like there's candles, you know, it was a whole romantic scene, and I'm like, oh, wait a second, what was, and she like flipped out. She's like, was it a worm? And I'm like, no.
Would it be? Why would it be?
And she then proceeded to tell me this whole story of how she had gotten some sort of worm infestation, and the worms literally came out of her butt.
Oh, that's horrible.
And it had been years before, but like when she
was traumatized,
still scarred
by having ass worms.
Yes, which I mean that would be traumatic to have.
Terrible.
I mean, I think I've had dogs before, obviously, and I mean, you know, I don't want to get too much into
they have a lot of ass worms. Dogs are prone to ass worms.
But they disgust me if I see them with dogs, so I couldn't even begin to imagine, because you know, she was like telling me that was when she was a younger teen or whatever. We were into our 20s by then, but it was like just immediately she was just back at that. I don't want to have to take the pills. I don't want to have to take the dewormer again. And I'm just like,
the dewormer. I love it.
It wasn't. It's okay. It wasn't a worm. It was a piece of fuzz. Don't worry. You know, it was. And so I mean that's what I mean. It's like people love. You know, on first impression, you might think space worms. It's not really scary. Who's afraid of space worms? But then it's like once you start to think about creatures that could burrow through your skin, through your skull and bone to get to either your brain or whatever they want to do inside of you, like none of it would be pleasant, you know, like. So I mean, I don't want you to think either that you know, being in that Charles Schulz, Bill Watterson kind of school of cartoony stories. I don't want people to think that you know, these are just simple or innocent stories. I mean, it's a tale of terror. I mean,
they're very horrific. I don't know that anything I do has ever been scary. I've always considered it horror because it always has monsters and extreme gore. But have you ever seen any of the Japanese splatterpunk movies like Tokyo Gore Police or so there's this entire genre of low budget horror comedy Japanese films from the 90s that are fucking insane. And one of the influences of Space Worms was a film called Meatball Machine. You want to see if you can find the trailer for that on YouTube real quick? We could watch it.
I got worms.
I beg your pardon?
That's what we're going to call it.
I need to play that again. I'm sorry. Let me see. You can keep talking. It should. Yeah, okay.
So none of these movies are like scary, but it's like a Vampire Girl versus Frankenstein Girl, Machine Girl, Mutant Girl Squad, I think is the name of another one. It's this whole there's like half a dozen of them that are all so extremely graphically violent and horrific and have monsters, but aren't scary at all. But that's like the 80s American movies, like Fred Decker's other movie, Monster Squad, or The Goonies. or films like that. Even Fright Night, one of the best vampire movies of all time, is more funny than it is scary. And so I kind of come from that camp school of monster movies that they're definitely not conventionally scary.
Okay,
Are you able to find it?
Yeah, let me.
Yeah, so this is probably the main influence on space worms, because these are literally little creatures that come down from space and take over people's brains and then change their body parts into weapons and fight each other.
We should. I think it'll keep us. I think our mics are still on, so you can yell or translate the Japanese. I can't read or speak Japanese.
Oh yeah,
so.
let me translate this for us.
That to be like super loud. So this would be a movie would it have subtitles? Is that what it would have?
Usually it's just crappily dubbed.
Okay. Oh, yeah. I love it.
So it's about these two shy kids that they sort of have a crush on each other, but they end up with these fucking brain aliens that make them fight each other.
I think there's sometimes if you don't pause the videos when you watch them, I believe they call it an EFAP, which is what does it stand for? Every frame a pause. If you don't pause them and discuss them, they can sometimes throw you off of there. And this being this is like the first time I'm like really getting this whole StreamYard thing working pretty well. Like we do. Yeah, we do our live stream reviews, but it's usually just me and Sam over here looking at stuff. You know, it's just like him sitting beside me and we're looking at stuff. So this is coming across pretty well, I think. I'm pretty happy. This is only objective they must. Oh, why does this? How do you fucking get rid of Cortana? That's what I need to figure out, because that
get rid of what?
There's a thing on Windows called Cortana, which is like its version of Siri or something.
Oh, okay.
And it constantly comes onto the screen. I can't figure out how to get rid of it.
It's not coming up on the screen here.
No, it'd be cannibalism.
Yeah, it pokes out their eyeballs. It's horrific. And yeah, they can make projectiles and they can make fucking saws and swords and knives.
This is fantastic. You see, I'm usually like drawing and what? Yeah. Close the neighbor. That's Japanese.
Meatball machine.
A meatball machine.
Meatball machine. I love it.
So yeah, none of these things are conventionally scary, but they're full of gore and monsters and sex, titties, and in my case, dicks. Lots and lots of dicks.
Lots of dicks. Huh. Well, yeah, I mean, you know, they can't go overlooked.
They often are overlooked. I think that's why I overcompensate for the lack of big swinging dong in American media.
Would that be equity of pornography, perhaps, instead of just an overabundance of?
In order for it to be pornography, it would have to actually turn people on. And I always tell people my goal is never to be erotic. My stuff is raunchy but not sexy. And there's tons of sex and what you would consider like pornographic, penetration between penises and mostly anuses. But it's never done in a way that is meant to be erotic at all. It's just meant to be gross. And it's my, I consider all of Strangeville to just be a reflection of the society that I see in front of me, which is this decadent, weird, satanic, um, you know,
Yes.
um, debaucherous, degenerate society. And so I just sort of amplify that back at it. This is a mirror just kind of showing this Sodom and Gomorrah, this pre-biblical flood world that we live in. And people think that, that means that I am this raging pervert. And while that might be true, I don't think that my art comes from a place of perversion. It doesn't come from a place where I'm not turning myself on with this hardcore, gratuitous, pornography. I'm just showing how gross it is. I'm trying to gross you out with this pornography. I'm not trying to turn you on. This isn't jerk off material. This isn't erotic in any way. It's so raw and gratuitous, but that is meant to show you, like, look how fucked up the human body is. Look how gross and perverted we are as especially as men. You could easily say that my work is like misogynistic times 1,000. It's like misogynistic turned up to 11. But does that mean I'm a misogynist? That very well could be. I wouldn't necessarily tell you you're wrong, but
Right.
the misogyny that I show in my work is so exaggerated, and even the women are misogynists. Even the women love how they're sort of used and abused and discarded. They sort of turn that on its head, and they use that as their own form of sexuality. And to me, it's just it's an absurd look at the world I see in front of me, for better or worse. I don't necessarily do it. It's like I'm like the Werner Herzog of pornography. I'm just showing you what is out there in the world in an artistic way. I'm not necessarily condoning or condemning it. You can take it any way you want to take it. It's fucked up, and you decide whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. I have my own personal opinions on it, but I don't try to put them. I try to look at it as objectively as possible in the work. Space Wars, for example.
Kind of like if you had like a mirror made out of like buttholes, perhaps. Like
A
it would
mirror,
just be,
butthole mirror that's got, like, instead of like intricately drawn filigree all throughout the sides of it, it's just butthole after butthole after butthole. But, like, Space Worms, for example, that we saw that Esmeralda scene where she's having a butt fuck party and inviting the entire town to fuck her ass and everyone else's ass, but you have to do it responsibly by making sure you leave your car keys and take a bottle of lube so you don't prolapse an anus. These women are allowing their buttholes to be absolutely ravaged, but not in a way that's going to leave them permanently scarred, sir. They butt fuck responsibly, so that there may be much more butt fucking in the future. Why would you want to fuck a woman's butt only one time when you could fuck a woman's butt as much as you wanted if you do it the right way?
So you're saying this is what they're doing out in the Midwest?
Maybe so. I'm going to grab a little bit of water if you want to set up what you want to talk about next. I'm going to grab a little water.
Yeah, here, I'll put on one of these things here.
What the hell was that? Oh man, I'm getting a flashback to all these Stephen J. Canal movie TV shows. Riptide! Thank you, Dr. Ben.
Yeah! This art is just so freaking crazy and just like so, like, this is the epitome of like underground comics to me. I love it. I think it is so cool. I don't know, just the certain things, like she's walking away and she just has this big ass with
look at that big ass, look at that big juicy booty, this Latina
with her twisted deformed arm looking over her shoulder. I love it so much. It's almost Ted McKeever-ish in a way.
All right.
Was that your stuff?
Yeah, that was me.
Dude, we need to trade some comics. I need that big juicy Latino booty.
That was have you seen the comedian Alex Stein, the pimp
so.
on we're gonna have to hang out and like just trade all of our stuff after this, because
for sure, buddy, for sure.
That's what I'm saying. Like I said, I've been following your stuff. I'm trying to think when when I had first seen your books, like I said, you had given me a copy of Beetle Brain, and I think it was just like a review copy or whatever, because for a while I was trying to promote myself as a reviewer of Bizarro books, right? And that had to have been like 2015 or 2016, maybe.
Okay. What else did you get into? I love Bizarro. As horrible as my time in Bizarro ended up being, because it sort of coincided with the Trump presidency, and the sort of battle lines were drawn between completely insane communists and normal people. And I'm as weird as I am such a proponent of free speech. I could never get on board with the woke stuff because it's so censorious, and just it's like, fuck white people, and you have to tell stories of minorities. And I have minorities and gays and transsexual people in all of my stuff. It's not that I want to tell white people stories. I have people of all persuasions in my stuff, but don't tell me what I have to. We need to tell stories from a female perspective. There's not enough females in Bizarro fiction. There's not enough females in Bizarro fiction because chicks don't want to write it. There's nobody keeping girls out of it. It's a dude genre. It's just what dudes like to write. Has nothing to do. The couple of girls that are in it are great at it. I used to promote the girls of Bizarro fiction because they were like, CV Hunt is one of my favorite fucking Bizarro fiction writers. She writes hardcore shit, dude. She and I were friends for a long time until I voted for Donald Trump. Now she'll never talk to me again. But I would tell her all the time, I love your fucked up brain. You write some twisted fucking shit, and I love it. She would send me fucking preview copies of her stuff, and she won't ever speak to me again. I was actually at a convention in Ohio last year, and she and her boyfriend were there selling books. She wouldn't even look in my fucking direction, but none of them will. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. What are your favorite? Who are your favorite Bizarro fiction writers?
Well, I don't know if Ed Lee is considered Bizarro, if he's just considered.
He's adjacent. He's extreme horror, but they're all the same people. The editors of Ed Lee are the same editors of Bizarro fiction. He's hands down one of my favorites. And we were talking before the broadcast started that William Scarr did a cover for me, did a cover for him, and then there's also Jim Agpalza did a cover for me and did a cover for Ed Lee. And just the fact that I have cover artists that have also done work for Ed Lee is amazing, because his books are so fucking good. He's such a twisted motherfucker.
Let me see if I can pull up that the book you had with that William Scarr. Wait a second. What? Okay, that's not it.
You search Beetle Brain on Amazon, it should Kevin Strange Beetle Brain.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah, because that would make sense to be able to show what I'm ready to talk about. And because this is the thing too, is like that was one of the things that like I immediately saw was like this cover for Beetle Brain, and I was just blown away, like, so maybe you can pull that. That doesn't make it bigger, really. I guess that's I don't want to see that note.
No, it's a bunch of my dumb. I don't even remember what my author's note says. What does it say? This novel is literally the byproduct. Oh, I think I started talking about how I speed wrote I Died in a Bed of Roses, and then I started writing that one. This novel is literally the byproduct of misheard lyrics. Oh, no, Beetle Brain. It's because I thought Glenn Danzig said Beetle Brain instead of, what are the actual lyrics?
Beaten in the Brain or something. Like, I know which one you're talking. That's what I'm saying. I
think it's Feeble Brain. I think he says Feeble Brain in the song, and I misheard it as Beetle Brain, and was like, if I was going to do a Beetle Brain story, what would that even be? And then it sort of ballooned into the novel that it became. But I actually wrote this with Carlton Mellick, who's the godfather of Bizarro fiction. We rented a cabin up in the coast of Oregon outside of Portland and wrote novels. And his novel he wrote was called Spider Bunny, and the novel I wrote was called I Died in a Bed of Roses, which, excuse me, also has a William Scarr cover. But I finished I Died in a Bed of Roses after 4 days, and we had the cabin for 7. And Carlton was still working on his book. And so I wasn't just going to, because we literally had no internet, no phone, no nothing for 7 days. And so I was literally would just be sitting there twiddling my thumbs for 3 days. So I started another novel, and I got, I think, 15,000 words into this novel while I was there. So I wrote 1.5 books in 7 days. That's how easily prose comes to me. And again, if I could bottle it and sell it, I would. I don't know why it's so easy for me to, because you see over 21 ratings, it's got a 4.3 out of 5. This isn't a badly reviewed book, and I wrote it lightning fucking fast.
Right.
And I don't know how I
stripper, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I love this thing. That's what I'm saying. She what does it say? When a cult of giant beetle worshipping masochists christens her the matriarch of a race of ancient bug monsters who have been living beneath the surface of the earth for millennia, waiting for the opportunity to ascend and consume all life above ground. See, this is the thing I remember from this is that it had for one, it did have like horrific parts in it, like there was, doesn't something happen to like her legs get broken or something or other, or her heels?
These guys like slash her the tendons, Achilles tendons on her heels, so she can't walk.
And she gets
rescued by the beetle monsters.
They give her they give her some sort of like, I don't know what you would call that, like bug spit up out legs or something, right?
Yeah, they end up building up some solid like beetle puke legs for her that are like stiletto heels that go all the way up to her knees, and she's got this like basically what becomes like bug spit exoskeleton for legs after she gets her Achilles tendons slashed.
So that's
which is kind of a berserk. Have you ever seen the anime Berserk?
Yes, of course.
You remember what happens to Griffith, where he gets all the tendons on his body when he gets tortured. He gets all the tendons on his body cut, and then the demons give him the opportunity. If you sacrifice your entire band of your entire army of hundreds of people to the demons, we'll give you a new body. And they sort of build him back up with an exoskeleton, where his ruined body gets built back up into like a Geiger-esque exoskeleton. That was kind of my idea for what happens to Sue Ellen here in Beetle Brain. The Beatles kind of build her beetle vomit exoskeleton.
So that's what I'm saying. Like it had all these like horrific like moments of like violence and bug puke. I mean, bug puke is gross, but I don't want to give any spoilers, but like the ending, I felt it had a happy ending. Is how I felt. Like I got to the end and I was like, yeah, I like it.
It's fucked up. A fucked up story. They're all fucked up though. Anything like I might say I don't have a lot of talent, but there's one thing is fucking for sure, that it takes you seconds to know if you're reading a Kevin Strange book or watching a Kevin Strange movie or reading a Kevin Strange comic book. I make sure my personality is imprinted. There's nothing generic about my stuff. It has an absolute voice that you recognize instantly. So you see Texas Chainsaw Mantis here?
Yes.
Blow that one up a little bit. So that cover is done by a cat named Jim Egpalza, who will never speak to me again because I had the audacity to vote for Donald Trump in the U.S. presidential race.
You didn't vote for Hillary Clinton?
I did not. I voted for Donald Trump.
You misogynist bigot.
Oh my gosh. Literal Nazi forever for voting for voting for someone I believe was going to uphold free speech more than the censorious Democrats. But anyway, Jim Egpalza did the cover for this. If you could make it any bigger, I guess not. But if you search The Dunwich Romance by Edward Lee.
Nope. Here we go. Well, now it's not. I can't see the whole
There you
thing.
go. Yeah. That's a nice big view here of Jim Egpalza's cover. If you search the Dunwich Romance by Edward Lee, it has a cover by Jim Egpalza, and it's an awesome cover. And I recommend the Dunwich Romance to anybody who likes hardcore horror. Dunwich Romances, and especially if you like Lovecraft. If you're a fan of H.P. Lovecraft and hardcore horror, Edward Lee writes the best Lovecraft pastiche.
Crown of Lies, the new book from Ed Lee. Yeah.
Oh, there we go. All right, well, that one doesn't have a cover.
That's not it. There
it is.
Is that
there
him?
It is. Yep. That's the Jim Egpalza cover for Dunwich Romance. And so I share the cover artist with the fucking best
Fantastic.
hardcore horror author of all time. And that's out of
Ed Lee
print.
is the guy. Like,
Ed Lee is the fucking man. That's out of print, $70. I guess I have that on my shelf. I guess I have a $70 book in there I could sell. Buy some crack and hookers.
what else would you buy with it? You know,
Not much.
I love it. I love it. And I'm going to click over too, because I think this. And then this was just your regular.
My regular old website, which I don't update this much anymore. I used to exclusively post on here, and back in like the heyday, like in the heady days of the Bizarro Wars, back in the 2016, 17, 18 era, I actually hosted a podcast where I was calling out all the Bizarros for their hypocrisy, and I would host the podcast here. But I haven't updated this in a long time. It's kind of just a placeholder right now. I'm trying to figure out what I want to do with it.
I love that pic. You just look like just a madman.
That's what you get if you come visit me at a convention. That's what you get. Drunk on whiskey, probably listening to ska music on the fucking on my speakers at my table, trying to sell you fucking buttworm books.
Yeah, no, I was at KillerCon in 2018, right? And I planned I wanted to go to BizarroCon that year to be like my first time to go to BizarroCon. And, you know, I was at KillerCon and got to meet Ed Lee, got to meet Raph, Brian Keane, Jeff Burke, all of those guys, the Clash Books people.
All of them hate me, especially the Clash Books. Who's the dude that runs Clash?
Christoph
and his girlfriend. What's her name?
Lisa.
Big titty
they're married
Lisa.
now.
They fucking hate me.
Do they?
I hung out with them, and believe me, in 2014 when I went to BizarroCon for the first time, they were my best fucking friends. We fucking loved each other, dude. They were so cool to me. Welcomed me like family. They nominated me twice for their Bizarro, for their Wonderland Award for Bizarro Fiction. But once I voted for Donald Trump, fuck me forever.
That is unforgivable, sir. Yeah,
unforgivable sin.
I don't know if I have it here or not. I had see, I didn't want to make this about like my stuff so much, but
dude, this is your show. Make it about all your shit.
I had been doing like indie underground comics going. I'm right by Cleveland, right? So I'd go up to like the Cleveland indie shows, and there's some over in PA, and I got to I remember I went to, and the RNC was in Cleveland that year too, right? So I went up there to that. I got to meet Milo. I saw Roger Stone, but like I was too late. I couldn't. There was already like this huge crowd around him that I couldn't get up to.
I would love to meet Roger Stone. That motherfucker. That motherfucker was instrumental in Donald Trump being elected president. Those Hillary for President shirts went viral because of him. Trump fucked up so bad in 2020 by not having him and not having who was his campaign manager going into the not the campaign manager. It was
Bannon?
Yeah, Steve Bannon. Bannon and Stone elected Donald Trump president, and then he fucking threw both of them out, started listening to Jared Kushner, and lost the fucking presidency because of it. Lost the presidency because of it.
I honestly, I couldn't vote for him in 2020 because, for one, I felt he fucked up everything with the COVID stuff. Like he just.
He walked right into that fucking ass first and got fucked the whole way through. He did everything so bad. And up to that point, dude, it was like a sure thing. Like there's nothing that could happen. This economy is so good. There's nothing that could happen that could ruin a re-election. And then fucking COVID, it was like a nightmare. It happened overnight. And everything he did, it was like, no, why are you doing this?
Just, oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, so anyways, my 2016, I'm making like my indie comics. I'm making political comics. I think that was the year that they had the Charlie Hebdo stuff where they attacked the
French
I'm doing,
cartoonist. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was looking. I had a comic where I had my little mini comic that I was giving out that year, where had Trump on the cover, had Danny Williams on the cover with so, I was just making these entirely like right wing like political comics, and like I was just an idiot too, because I'm like completely naive, like walking into conventions, and I'm like, God, these comics are about Donald Trump, and all of the other cartoonists.
Everyone goes, "What are you doing?
Like,
He's the devil, sir. Are you a Nazi?"
They just all gave me that look of like,
I love it.
No.
I love it.
No.
You learned really quick that that's a fucking one ideology dominates the fucking indie literature world, and that's hardcore communism.
And they a couple of them, they tried to like cancel me or whatever. They're posting to people, posting to like publishers. Did you see this guy? He was at the Milo concert, but you can't associate with him.
Did you bring that stuff to KillerCon?
No. See, that's what I'm saying. Is like,
oh, okay.
When I took to KillerCon, I wrote a little story called Trash Snow White. That's what I call it. Where it was just it was like Snow White, but she's in a trailer park, and there's the witch is in there, and there's a weird demon that lives in the mirror, and it's like a whole. I'll send you, but after, like I said, they tried to cancel me in the comics thing, and I was just like, all these people are like unfriending me, blocking, and I'm just like, I wasn't making money with it. I didn't have like anything going with it, and I'm just like, fuck this, I can't. I went to work at a factory, and I started listening to. That's when I really discovered. I was like, well, all these Bizarro guys, because I remember like seeing you and who's that other fellow, Jeremy Maddox or something.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing that there was a few people that were like, not like just straight up lunatic left, and I was like, oh, well, these guys, they seem okay, and like Jeff Burke, for anything someone could say about Jeff Burke being whatever his politics might be.
I can say a lot of things about Jeff Burke, but you go ahead.
But he seemed like the most level-headed sort of leftist I could think of. You know what I mean? Like he seemed like someone you could actually like talk with, and whether you can or not, you know what I mean? Like there's all these people that seem like they were at least not just immediately shunning anyone for political differences.
Well, maybe Jeff would be more willing to engage with you in a conversation online, but he's best friends with somebody like Garrett Cook, who was absolutely a shrieking banshee of cancellation. If you were even, or somebody like Jeff O'Brien, if you were even connected to someone that he considered a Nazi on social media, he would block you for being friends with a Nazi on social media, a Nazi adjacent individual. And Jeff, maybe he wouldn't necessarily do that, but I promise you behind the scenes, he was telling them to do that. Like Jeff is as bad as them, but for whatever reason tries to present a public personality that is sort of above that, but he's not above that. Let me tell you a little story about Jeff Burke. Every time I complete a new graphic novel, I send the PDF to Jeff Burke along with a message in email privately and telling him to go fuck himself. And I will never, because he led the charge to cancel me in 2016, 2017. And he did a lot of damage to my reputation and a lot of damage to my career. And I make sure that I send him every new thing I do and say, I'm still here, motherfucker. And nothing you will ever do will prevent me from creating, new stories. Because he would tell me things like, be real snarky and be like, you should create right-wing content for right-wing people. And so I always send him shit and say, is this satanic enough for you? There's cannibalism and ritual murder, and there's anal sex and all of this horrible stuff. Is this enough? I always tell him, I do hardcore horror better than you. And I'm a right-winger. How does that make you feel? And I'm not really a right-winger. I don't consider myself political at all, actually. Right. I'm a free speech absolutist, and I love extreme horror. And I think there is no extreme horror without free speech. You can't tell insane stories without the ability to talk about anything you want. And these leftists try to tell extreme horror stories only from the perspective of minorities, or only from the perspective of trans people, or only from the perspective of gay people. And it's like,
acceptable
you are telling,
social justice causes,
you are telling,
right?
yeah, it's all social justice stories, and it's the same story over and over again. You're not telling anything creative. You're only forwarding one narrative. You're just telling
Right.
the same thing that the women on The View tell their viewers. You're telling people in extreme horror. It's lame. It's been told to death. I don't need another story like that. I don't need another story that demonizes white people. It doesn't have to praise white people. It doesn't have to be
Right.
white people are superior. Like I said, my stuff contains everything. I always tell them, Jeff, are there enough trans people in this story for you, Jeff? And I do. I send him some stuff every time. I haven't sent him Space Worms yet, but I've been figuring out in my head what my email to Jeff is going to be the next time I talk. This conversation is taking a weird turn. I didn't realize you knew who all these people were, and I have no problem
I know
talking about them
everything.
publicly. Jeff Burke can go fuck himself, but Jeff Burke is also welcome to do a podcast with me. We both share a favorite author. We both love Richard Lehman, who was an 80s and 90s hardcore horror author who died tragically very young, in I think 99. And he was prolific. He had over 30 novels. And Jeff and I are both huge fans of him. And I've privately invited Jeff many times. Hey, politics aside, motherfucker, put your communism down, and let's do a Richard Lehman podcast where each week or each month we do a deep dive into a Richard Lehman novel, and we don't argue about anything. Let's just let's go hardcore into the things that we have in common, and let's be friends. And he won't do it. He will not do a podcast with me, because you know how those leftists are. If he does a friendly podcast with me, he'll get canceled.
Right. Well, I think that might be, and I don't want to like speak for him or for for anything with him, but that's what I'm saying. It's like he was at Killer Con, and that's what I mean. Like we talked, and like I remember him being like, "Oh well, yeah, I could tell you had voted for Trump and this and that," and I was like, "Yeah," and he's like, "That's and I didn't get that same kind of attitude or opinion that you're that you've gotten with him, and I mean, that's like I said, I don't want to like try to jump into the middle of anyone separate. I don't care like offering or having you like express anything. I'm not like that either. Like,
maybe you're the glue that will bring us together, sir.
Could be. Well, because this is the thing is I feel, and I don't want anyone to take this the wrong way either. I feel sad for him because then that year that was like the last Bizarro Con, right? Was that 20?
He ended up getting where what was his name? Chandler
Morrison, yeah,
got canceled. And Jeff ended up losing his job over it.
Yeah, they all fucking gave him the axe, threw him under the bus. And it was like, it was just the saddest thing watching all of it, because they were all like so like okay with it. Like, well, it was really hard to do, but we had to fire. And I'm like,
but we had to fucking cancel Jeff fucking Burke, the biggest fucking communist of all of us. It was surreal to watch. And a lot of people came to me in private when that happened and said, because I had been doing the podcast going hard on Bizarro, telling them they were purity spiraling and that they were going to cancel each other, and it was all going to end up being transsexuals versus feminist women, and all men were going to be gone, and it was just going to be those two groups that would then clash. The feminists would become TERFs, and the trans people would attack them, and that's and everyone in the middle would get blown out. That's exactly what fucking happened. It's exactly what fucking happened. And I tell people, like, everyone took it as though Kevin Strange was shitting on Bizarro. I love Bizarro. I fucking wrote 18 Bizarro fucking books, dude. I fucking was I was so in the middle of it. At one point I told Carlton and Rose, who own Eraserhead Press, privately, I said, I'll move to Portland and work for Eraserhead Press. If you guys want an editor, I will move there and I will dedicate my life to Eraserhead Press. And they told me that they were happy with my enthusiasm, but they didn't think that, I'd been around quite long enough to take that kind of don't do that. Don't move all the way here, for that yet. And it's a good thing, because It was right around the corner was the Donald Trump
Yeah.
division, dividing wedge that sort of ruined everything. But all that is
Yeah.
to say that I truly loved Bizarro, and that was the moment where once Jeff was fired, that was sort of the moment where it all collapsed, and it's never built back up.
Yeah. Well, that's what I mean. Is like I'm watching all this. Like I said, I'd taken a little short story. I printed it out, and I remember giving copies to everyone. I had just done the audio book for another fella. What was it? The Drip Drop Prophet and other stories. I'd done the audio book for that for him, and I had a couple copies of the book that he sent me. And I was like giving them to like Brian Keane, like, hey, check out my buddy's book. Hey, you here? I'm like, and then I like I said, I had to go start working at a factory, and it was like a 70-hour a week, 7 days a week factory. So it was just like dead.
No time for anything else.
I'm listening to stuff on my headphones while I'm checking parts, and I'm like listening to, Bizarro just like falling apart. And I'm like,
yeah.
Oh,
did you listen to the whole? Did you listen to the Brian Keane saga, Me versus Brian Keane? Did you listen to all that?
I can't remember if I did or not, because I know that's one of the things I remember listening to you on Mr. Frank's show, Bizarro,
yeah.
And I remember there being some. I can't remember the whatever it was that happened with you and Keane, but
he was at BizarroCon the year previous to, or maybe 2 years, maybe even 3 years previous to Jeff Burke being canceled. They tried to cancel some other kid who was like innocently hitting on this Bizarro writer girl, and she sort of, after BizarroCon, she kind of blew it up into an internet thing and tried to get him canceled. And I went to the kid and got his side of the story. And Brian Keane was on his podcast, sort of throwing this kid under the bus, calling him a sexual harasser and calling him a stalker. And the kid sent me the screenshots of the messages, and this girl never told him to stop talking to her until 3 weeks after BizarroCon had ended. And he was like this autistic kid, and he was sending her these giant fucking message. It was all very innocent.
Some of those.
It was innocent but intense because he's autistic. But she let that go all through BizarroCon and sort of talked about him behind his back when he wasn't. Oh, that guy's such a creep. But when he was in her face, she was sweet to him and nice and sort of encouraging his behavior. And then Brian Keane said he witnessed this sexual harassment in person. And I knew, based on conversations with the kid, that Brian had never been in the room with them. He never saw those two together, but on his podcast, he said he did. So I started a podcast series called Bizarro Gate, where I called Brian Keane out and said he was lying, that he was using his clout as a big time author to ruin this kid. I don't even know if this kid had ever had anything fucking published. He was just a part of the scene in Portland. And he was this little bitty dude. And I was like, man, it's like sending a nuke to fucking unclog a toilet. Like, They don't need your fucking voice in the middle of this, Brian. Stay out of it. And you're fucking lying on top of it. And we went back and forth where he would do a podcast where he would try to gotcha me. And then I would do a podcast following that, trying to gotcha him. And in the end, I think I won. In the end, I think I was able to present enough facts, like the screenshots with the timestamps of when this female author finally told this kid that she didn't want him to message her again. And he never did. After she told him to leave him alone, he did. And so I kind of presented all this, and that Brian was lying and he was never in the room with them. And I kind of presented it all and I was trying to also be as gracious as I could to her and say, like, if she has social anxiety and she thinks that men are intimidating when they come up and talk to her, maybe she should bring a therapy dog or something with her to help calm her down. Or maybe she should always have a male friend with her in public. Like, she shouldn't allow herself to be giving her. I was sort of trying to give her all of these different scenarios where she could attend a public event and not accuse someone of fucking sexually harassing and stalking her because she's socially awkward and he's socially awkward. Like, there's no reason to throw it, but you know how it was in that time. Like, they were
Oh
looking
yeah.
for anyone they could to sacrifice on the altar of wokeness and say, "We got another one of those white guys."
We got another one of these whites.
And so yeah, I stood up for the kid, and I didn't know him from anybody. And he was an autistic weirdo, and he never said thank you. He never said thanks for sticking up for me, dude. I didn't do it for him.
Well,
I did it for the next guy. I did
I mean,
it for the guy before him.
That could be just autistic people can sometimes just have. I mean, normal people can have awkward social manners, anyways. But
Right.
for someone who's autistic, that could be. They just literally just don't even think like, oh, I should like thank someone, or I should do this or that.
I should be grateful for this, right? Yeah, and I don't hold it against him.
But,
and I don't hold it against Brian Keene. Brian Keene will always be Brian Keene. And he will always be this motherfucker that tries to throw himself. He believes he is the white savior for women. And he will always go out of his way to dive on the fucking grenade for any woman that says she's in distress. That's just what his personality is. And oftentimes, did you see the controversy between Brian and Amber Fallon? There was this Bizarro author named Amber Fallon who was like trying to socially climb up the ranks as fast as she could, and she emotionally manipulated Brian and his girlfriend. I don't know if they're married now. I don't think they're married. Mary Sangiovanni. She was like going to them privately and pleading this and that, and trying to get blurbs from them, and trying to get them to edit her work. And she basically emotionally manipulated a bunch of people in the Bizarro and horror and hardcore horror communities, trying to elevate herself as fast as possible. And it all blew up, and it ended with Brian posting this big long dissertation on his website basically condemning and canceling her, but he wouldn't use her name. He was calling her Jane Doe throughout the piece. And so I wrote my own piece where I talked about how the best, like Brian Keene is the biggest male feminist in all of horror fiction, and he's easily manipulated, and this woman took complete advantage of him. But that he himself is such a pompous ass that he literally stripped her of her identity and gave her no agency in his accusations against her, and didn't give her the ability to defend herself by naming her and giving her a personality that could defend herself. He called her Jane Doe throughout it. And I posted my piece, and then he deleted his. And I took that as a big fat fucking win. I got Brian Keene to delete an entire cancel hit piece on an author. And she deserved it. She deserved to get canceled, but I saw it as an opportunity to fucking humiliate Brian Keene. And I take those opportunities as often as I can. And I tell you this, and I'll also tell you this. I love Brian Keene. I consider him a big stupid brother that is a fucking absolute idiot. And every chance I get, I show him how stupid his fucking shtick is, where he thinks he has to be a savior to every, like, women can take care of themselves, Brian. They don't need your fucking big ass to come rumbling into the room, breaking everything, trying to make sure their fucking feelings aren't hurt. Let women be everybody talks about strong, empowered, independent women. Let them be strong, empowered, and independent, dude. Let them stand up for themselves. But I also love his writing. I think Conqueror Worm is one of the what is it called? What is his Worm series called? It's not called Conqueror Worm. It's called something of the gods.
I'm going to say I'm horrible with names, so I do have a couple of his books. And I mean,
The Rising is the most influential zombie novel, of the 90s, that helped spark the fucking zombie craze of the late 90s, early 2000s. I got a lot of praise for Brian, but I also have a lot of fucking, stuff to say about his cancel nonsense. If he didn't do that shit, I wouldn't say anything bad about him. But I have that sort of love-hate relationship with everybody. I'd do a podcast about Richard Lehman with Jeff Burke. I would happily be in a room with Brian Keene and have a great time with him. But these people hate me. They can't stand me. And I think a lot of the reason that they don't like me is because I have these like really neutral feelings about them. I'm willing to call them out on their bullshit, but I'm also willing to praise them for their talents and brilliance. Brian Keene is a brilliant writer.
Let's see. I can't figure out where I have this online, so I'm just gonna. Do I not have it in here either? You're gonna get a kick out of this, This was is this it? Yeah. Okay, so so you know about the like X-Men Grand Design, Fantastic Four Grand Design.
Yeah, the Ed
Hulk Grand-
Piskor and yeah.
Yeah.
The Cartoon Escape Babe guys.
Okay, so do you remember seeing the Image Grand Design? So
Yeah. That was created in like a kayfabe private group, right? They all came together during COVID and made Image Grand Design. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not gonna try and figure out how to do put me on.
Yeah, you can pull yourself up. You can make yourself big. You can take me out of it and make you the full page.
Kick from the studio, ban from the studio. Why does
I've never even seen ban. Go to you, and it should allow you to blow yourself up.
Solo. There it is.
There you go.
Okay. So, anyways, on the other, there's Image Grand Design, right? And then on the flip side of the book is Image Grand Disaster, right?
Okay.
Now I've got a couple of comics in here.
Oh, that's amazing.
And this was like a dream that I had, right? Where I met Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips, the guys that do Criminal, and they have a whole series of noir novels. I had dreamt that I met them, and like I was like, "Hey, can I interview you guys?" And they're talking to me, and I asked them in the dream about there. I guess that's the way to do it. I asked them in the dream about this issue of Captain America. I cannot figure out how to do this. There, Captain America 602, because that had been like a controversy at the time, back in like 2012, because it had like Tea Party signs or something.
Okay.
And he's like, no comment. And so I asked him, sir, how do I, there. Well, what about the ending? Motherfucker!
You go right into a Sam Keith Max pose.
And I used that quote from there. I'm like entirely backwards. No comment. Don't. I can't even read it now.
Oh, that's from the Brian Keane thing, right?
This interview is over. No comment.
I love it. That's Mike Lombardo is the guy doing that fake interview with Brian Keane, and Mike Lombardo is he's the director of White Doomsday.
Yeah,
and he and I were really close friends when we first started filmmaking, and he actually sent me some pirated editing software that allowed me to make my first film, Dream Reaper. So this all sort of comes back around to making movies, and that's fucking amazing that you ended up in Image Grand Disaster. That's a big feather in the cap, buddy. And you have references to Brian Keane and Mike Lombardo that circles back around.
What is that doing? Why is that on there?
It's a small world, sir.
I know. That's what I'm saying. Like I remember sending the pictures of that to Keane, just like through Twitter or whatever, and like I never got any. I was like, look, I used your thing about the end of the Rising.
I hate to say it. I hate to say it, but don't expect kindness out of them after doing this interview with me.
No,
don't expect them to think too highly of you after this.
No, I would imagine.
Indulge giving me a voice and a platform, giving a bigot and a Nazi a platform. We know you voted for Trump, but you're not extreme right like Kevin Strange is.
Well, this entire thing played out with comics too. There was the whole Comics Gate, and Ethan Van Sciver. I've heard two different stories. Either, he says that they, stopped renewing his contract. They're like, hey, we're not going to renew your contract anymore because, the Trump thing. And people in comics were like, we know who you are. We're gonna remember who voted for Trump. We remember.
Right.
And he was like, okay, well, I'm gonna just do my own comics then. And he brought out Cyberfrog, right? And I mean, he's been like insanely successful with it, and it's the same thing. If you were friends with him or if you followed him on Twitter. I mean, to me, it's so absurd that if you follow someone on Twitter, people will see that and be like, and not like, you know, maybe if you were following Hitler on Twitter, you know, I could get that. You know, if he's on there talking about whatever, you know, yeah, okay, sure. But like when you just label half of the country also Hitler, you're like, really?
Well, doesn't this all sort of have a very similar theme, where guys like you and me don't care what your politics are? We focus on the fiction itself and the talent that you have as a storyteller, whereas other people are such ideologues that your thoughts in your brain, because you and me, brother, even if we were frothing at the mouth racists and anti-Semites, have no power in this world. I can't prevent a Jew from doing anything a Jew wants to do, even if I wanted to. And I think that's the difference between people like us and people like really raging leftists, is that they believe that our mere existence, and I'm not saying I dislike Jewish people or want to prevent them from doing anything in this world, but if I did, that's those are the thoughts that are they're in my head. They are my personal and private thoughts. In this world, I have no power, so my thoughts present no challenge to any other human being. So it's this ideological cult of leftism that makes these people say, if you think a thought that I don't agree with, then I can't be friends with you and I can't associate with you. I can't promote your art. I can't support your art, and I can't speak well about it. Whereas you've heard me throughout this discussion praise every one of these people that I've been as in extreme conflict with. I also go out of my way to praise them for their talent. And I still own a dozen Brian Keene books. I still own so many books edited by Jeff Burke's Deadite Press, and that's never going to change because I'm not an ideologue. I don't base my perception of the world on other people's private thoughts.
Well, and I think too, like you're not creating from this ideological stage, right? You're not like, if you
not a bit.
If people were to go out and say, okay, well, we're going to make Republican comics. No, nobody fucking wants to read that. Republicans don't want to read Republican comics. You know what I mean? Like,
that's so true.
But, and it's funny because this is a lot of stuff that I've been thinking about forever. Anyways, is that so much of this is about language, right? Control of language, redefinition of words, or this, you know, the thing where they define words as violence, right? You can't say, I hate Kevin Strange, I hate Jeff Burke, because literally, if you say violence. That, it's literally violence. And it's like, that's not what that is.
It's weaponizing language, and it's telling me that I can't express myself. Again, free speech absolutist. Do not tell me words are violence. Violence is violence. Words are words. They have a definition. They have a place in this world. Words can be dangerous. Words can evoke emotions, but I like to live in a dangerous world where all words and all emotions are accessible to all people. Because I'm a normal person. You can't incite me to violence by telling me that Jews are the controllers of, you know, of the world. That's not going to make me go out and hurt a Jew. That's, you know, calling Jews Zionists isn't going to make me go out and commit violence. It's never going to happen. I will never commit violence based on the words of someone else. That will not happen. I just watched the Waco Aftermath Hulu limited series, and it's got Michael, what's his name? Who plays Zod? What is his name?
Shannon.
Michael Shannon, and he plays this FBI guy. And at one point, they like raid this white supremacist compound, and he walks into this room, and he's like, "Oh no, oh my God, oh it can't be. They have 5 fax machines, 5 fax machines. They're sending out white supremacist literature to thousands of people. Faxes. They're sending faxes as though there's magic in these fucking white supremacist language that's going to incite people to violence. Listen, that's not how it happens. There aren't magic hate words that make people go commit violence. It's not how it works. These people that get pulled into these white supremacist groups hated people before they ever saw their first white supremacist fucking newsletter. They already felt that way, and they just found common ground with other violent people. They were already on the verge of violence. Like,
what does that do anyways when you tell someone, well, you can't say this, you can't say that. That has
I
always
love
historically had the opposite effect.
Right. I love to see these memes on social media where it's like, buy a banned book today. And I'm like, well, I bet that library doesn't have Mein Kampf. I bet that library doesn't have the Turner Diaries. I bet that library doesn't have the fucking, not the Satanic Scriptures. What was the name of that book that got,
the Satanic Verses.
The Satanic Verses.
Yeah.
I bet those aren't on your. I bet those aren't on your list that you carry at your fucking library. I never say anything, but I always, it's like, you've banned these books about trans 5-year-olds. These should be readily available. Well, should they? If they're going to be available, shouldn't the Turner Diaries be available too? If you want to put the fucking trans children books up, just put them next to Mein Kampf, and I'll be right there with you, pal. It's never going to happen.
As long as they don't start having NFTs at the library, I'm going to support everything. That's my line I draw.
Not the NFTs.
The NFTs and the AI.
Right.
That was that was the other thing. Last year there was it was the Toronto Comics and Arts Fest, right? It's the big indie comics fest in Toronto. And they invited this lady that was on Instagram that had 500,000 followers or something, that she called herself Pink Cat, right? And she just made these comics about, they all just had a cat that was basically, she swiped different things. Like she swiped different like Tank Girl comics, but then like redrew them with like this cat person, right? And it was all just like just stupid, like kind of like almost like soccer mom kind of jokes and stuff. Like there wasn't anything at all like political or like anything like that. You know what I mean? Like it was just her like talking about eating dinner or picking her kids up from the babysitter or whatever. And they invited this lady to go to the TCAF, right? She was out in Los Angeles, and like I said, hugely popular, right? The LA Times was calling her the Generation Z Garfield, right?
Okay.
And then someone pointed out that she was using the NFTs is what she was doing too. She was selling NFTs of her cat lady thing, and they just scorched her. I mean, it was the same thing that we saw with like all this Bizarro stuff, where everyone just piles on to say that's the bad part, that's the witch, burn them. They disinvited her, and she's just like, she was like so completely outside of like the whole like cartoon indie comic scene. She's just like, now they don't want me to. Okay, whatever. It's a trade show. And they're like, it's not a trade show. It's an artistic conference. And she's like, I don't know, like, whatever. And she's like, listen, and then they started with the, she traced a Tank Girl picture is what, so she's
swiped some stuff. Yeah.
She's stealing art is what she's doing.
Yeah.
And it's like every single cartoonist out there has swiped something from Jack Kirby, something from Jim Lee, something from whoever, Wally Wood,
the best of the best swipe from each other.
And she's like, and they're all just like I said, just torturing her about all this. And she's like, what is even going on? She's like, for one, like, I'm a refugee from Iran. My parents moved here when I was a kid. I'm literally, I grew up in a war zone and I'm more of Tank Girl than Tank Girl, right?
Right.
And it was just this huge, the same thing, if you're friends with her, you follow her, oh my gosh. And it was it's just like I said, it's the same spirit of cannibalism is in the comics scene, and it's just like I said, the people that are, and it's not even that anyone has to be right wing, right? Like you know who Dale Keown is, who did Pitt. He's up in Canada, so he can't even be a Republican. But
they still hate him because he's associated with Comicsgate now, right?
Exactly.
They got to try to cancel him.
And it's like, I saw that and I'm like, what the? I'm like, I cannot. There's no way I can even get behind or just be okay with people being like, Dale Keown,
right?
Stop him. It's like,
well, that's why I tend to not associate with anybody anymore after the because I went hardcore into Bizarro. Like I was more of a proponent of Bizarro fiction as a genre than I was of my own fiction as a person, as an author. And when I saw how little anybody cared about that, once they realized that the thoughts in my head were illegal, and how quickly that some of people that were my best friends in fiction, like Danger Slater, who was a dude that I was so close with. We talked every day. We talked on the phone. I went and stayed at his house when I went to Portland to go to Bizarro Con. And the minute I was public enemy #1, that motherfucker has never spoken to me again, not one time. And so I learned a big lesson in that. And when I started doing comics, I've been an island of my own. Strangeville is the island of misfit toys. It's just I don't get involved with anyone else. I just sort of stay to myself. And I have friends that I consider friends in fiction, but people ask me all the time, do you want to collaborate? You want to work on something together? And I always tell them, I'm sorry, if you knew what I went through the last time I was in a place in my head where I collaborated with people, it goes so bad, so fast for me that I just stay to myself. Let's be friends. Let's promote each other's work, but I don't want to get any closer to anybody than that. And that's why I've never publicly joined Comicsgate or anything like that, is because I just don't want what gets us, you end up being, you put your fucking ass out there, and no matter how, because you can think of Comicsgate as sort of like a comic book trade union for conservatives. And so they'll circle the wagons and protect you when crazy wokies come after you. But the problem is I've been in that. I've felt that security before, and the feeling you get when that security gets yanked out from under you and your best friends turn on you because you said something or thought something they didn't like. There's no reason for me to do that. I have too much of I'm already a giant personality. I already fill up a fucking room. My art fills up a room and my personality fills up a room. I'm blessed in that I don't need, a lot of people need that group. They need that community in order to amplify their voice and get themselves even to a place where anybody pays attention to them. I'm blessed to have the strange heads that have been supporting me for 20 years, and they're all I care about. And it breaks my heart when anytime one of them decides they've had enough of my bullshit.
Too many dicks.
Decides to leave. Too many dicks. It's mostly too much political spouting off on social media, which I try my best not to do. But lately, I've been so fucking disgusted by the satanic pedophiles.
Yeah, it has been.
I've had to run my mouth, and you see them in the comments. There's always one or two lefties that don't realize, because I do my best to stay neutral, and so I'll suck in new fans, and then when they see me say something that's even remotely right wing, they're like, "Oh no, no, I'm following a Nazi," and they cut ties with me. And they cut ties with me because through my art, you would never know. You would never know one way or the other. My art is so fucked up. And again, it's just an amplification of everything that we see. So it doesn't condemn it or condone it. It just shows it to you. And you're like, is he fucked up? Or is he making fun of fucked up people? What's going on here? And I make sure you can't tell the difference. You can't tell the difference between whether I'm satirizing extremist culture or whether I'm a part of it. Because again, I'm a fucked up pervert. I am that guy. But I also think it's fucked up.
Is he hosting the butt fucking parties, or is he just
or
is
he
he
making
just
fun
like
of Butters
spying
too?
on him? What's going
Yeah,
on here?
yeah. What's going on? I have to
guess
pee. Do you want to keep talking, or you want to wrap it up?
Yeah, we can wrap it up just for the broadcast or whatever, but we can do a little chillax in the green room afterwards here. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll go back and go over. I'll play the. I'll go back over your Kickstarter. You do your thing, and I'll go over to that.
All right,
and
I'll be right back.
Yeah. Figure out how to do this. Present as. Currently, we have 0 viewers. Why aren't you here live? Is that one? No, is it that one? No. That one. And the meatball machiner. This is what. There we go. I just wanted to go back to this. I'm going to refresh it too. Is that 15 backers? Let's see if we didn't get any more backers for the Space Worms book, but it has reached its goal. Kevin's a little bit too humble to say that he has achieved the first goal of $500. It's at $656 right now. But we're going to slide down here because he's got a couple of stretch goals I wanted to talk about. Where is it at here? It's out at the bottom. There's Esmeralda. And down here we got where's the stretch goal thing? There it is. So at 750. Yeah, so that's what I figure is end up with just going over what your next stretch goal here is. All physical back.
I see the meatball machine trailer.
Is it still on there? Why is it on there? Oh, Jesus. Share this tab. Okay. There it is. This is what I was looking at. So you're at I can't find my mouse, so all my scrolling.
We're at like 656, or a little less than $100 away from that 750 stretch goal, where all physical tier backers will get an 11 by 17 Space Worms cover poster.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to show, what the next stretch goals are. So I am curious, just as a matter of, what do you call it? Shop talk or whatever. How are you going to do the posters? Are they going to be like rolled up or folded?
I always fold them loosely, and so I put like the bottom of it under the comic and extras, and then fold the top over. And every great once in a while, one of those posters will get damaged, and I'll do a rolled one and send to the backer whose poster was damaged. But 99% of them mail just fine that way in a Gemini folded postal package, and that way it's not folded hard creased, so when it comes out of that package you can frame it and it doesn't have a crease in the middle of it. That's always worked for me in the past, and I've included a 11 by 17 poster stretch goal in all my campaigns.
Right on. If someone gets theirs damaged. Oh, well, you just said that.
Yeah, I said it back.
I am slightly retarded, so like just keep that in mind.
I'm fully retarded. I got brain worms.
The brain worms. Oh my gosh. If you watch that movie, you got the brain worms. And then the $1,000 stretch goal, all the physical tier backers will receive a sketch card. Excellent.
Yep, I'll do a personalized little I haven't decided if I'm going to do pencil or ink yet with it, but maybe both.
Okay. I dig it. And you're at, like we said, you're at 656, so you're really just like $300 away from having to draw.
Yeah, it's not a lot. I keep my stretch goals. I keep my stretch goals well within the area of reason.
$12.50. Everyone gets a personalized thank you video. Okay.
Yeah, I did that on my last one on the Nixon and Hogan's Horror Week Halloween, I did a stretch goal that was a personalized thank you video, and I had a lot of fun doing those. They were about a minute and a half, and I would just go crazy. And they were private, so only the backer, had access to the link to see their own personalized video. And I went all out and got crazy in every one of those. I have a lot of fun with that stretch goal.
I love it. I love it.
And if we, if we're blessed enough to go past 1250, I'll add some more.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Well, I mean, that's definitely the goal. And I mean, you've made a believer of me and for the Cult of Strange. So,
Glad to hear it. Welcome aboard.
I'm trying to think if I have. Yeah, I'll go ahead and I'll close it out and I'll play us a song to see us out. You have any last words? Yeah. You have any last words for?
Yeah, if you liked what you heard here today, jump in and back Space Worms. You have till August 3rd. Kevin Strange's Space Worms, 164 pages of absurd wormy violence and occult horror. You see, I have a Bill Watterson type of cartoony style that I think blends perfectly with the outrageous horror comedy Kevin Smith Tarantino-esque ultra wordy dialogue that I use in my movies and comics. And yeah, it's a no risk campaign. This book has been done for a long time, actually. I've been dragging my feet because, there's one thing we didn't talk about tonight. One thing we forgot to go over, and that is that this Friday,
Hart Fisher.
Yeah, the Hart Fisher American Horrors screening of Cockhammer.
Is that
so
on
today's,
your? Is that
if you
on
just
your
go,
Twitter thing? No?
If you just go to AmericanHorrors.net, that's where it'll be playing.
Let's see here. Yeah, Hart Fisher's. He's another one that he's just, he's not political, but I think he gets lumped in with that a lot.
You never know where Hart's going to come down on any issue. He's a fucking madman. And Hart Fisher, for those that don't know, he's the controversial publisher and writer of the Jeffrey Dahmer comics from the 90s that got him in all kinds of trouble with the families of the Dahmer victims. And he was dragged onto
Sally Jesse
Raphael daytime talk show and ran through the ringer. He was the editor of Glenn Danzig's Veronica comic book. And he wrote a story in issue number 4 called A Taste of Cherry that actually got a shop owner arrested and charged with obscenity. He published Mike Diana, who is the only American cartoonist to ever be charged with obscenity and told he could never draw again in the state of Florida. And Mike Diana has never gone back to Florida after he was indicted on obscenity charges for drawing.
Yeah, that's
so Hart Fisher is the king of the underground, and for whatever reason, he's decided he's taken a liking to me, and he's sort of become a mentor of sorts of mine, which is mind blowing. And he decided that we were going to do a program called One Fright Only on his American Horrors television network that he has that airs on AmericanHorrors.net and the American Horrors Roku channel. If you download Roku station, if you have a Roku TV and you download your channel apps like Hulu and Netflix, you can also download American Horrors, and it's a 24-hour streaming. It doesn't have on demand. You just press play on American Horrors, and whatever movie's playing is what movie you're watching at the time. It's a continuous 24-hour channel. So around 10 p.m. on Friday night, July 14th, which is 2 nights from now, he's playing for One Fright Only. We're only playing Cockhammer one time. He's playing my feature-length film Cockhammer at 10 o'clock, and that is such a huge fucking honor to have the endorsement of someone as infamous as Hart Fisher. So yeah, check that out. I had Hart on my YouTube channel, the Kevin Strange channel, last week. You can look that up through my social medias or through my YouTube channel, and go to my YouTube channel, click the live tab, and it's the latest live video I did. I think we did 3.5 hours of drunken fucking tomfoolery, and Hart is just a mad motherfucker, and you never know where he's gonna go with his shit. But he's a bad motherfucker. He's the king of outlaws. Such a hardcore believer in comic books. He published Gerard Way's first comic book, Gerard Way from My Chemical Romance, who went on to write The Umbrella Academy, which became a huge Netflix hit. Hart Fisher originally published Gerard Way, so he's got so many guys that he's mentored that have gone on to infamy. It's a great honor to be associated with him, and he gave me that quote at the beginning of the trailer, beginning of the Space Worms trailer. So that's amazing.
I forgot about that. Excellent. Wow.
So yeah, that's Friday night. You can watch Cockhammer on American Horrors for free.
Well, I'm gonna be watching. I know what I'm doing Friday night is watching Cockhammer.
That's what I'm gonna be doing.
Hell
I'll
yeah!
be watching Cockhammer with my cock out.
Well, that's every day, but
it's right now.
It's why you only see from the chest up.
Exactly.
It's hot. It's hot here in Ohio. So. Alrighty. Well, hell, like I said, I'll play us a song to get us out of here, and then stick around and we'll talk. We'll do a little powwow behind the scenes.
Yeah. You got till August 3rd to back Space Worms. Jump in quick and get us those stretch goals. The more people that jump in, the more free goodies you get.
Hell yeah!
And including an excellent, already finished, ready to ship, or ready to print rather. I wish it was ready to ship. Ready to print graphic novel. Little comic book piece.
Yeah. All right. Well, with that said, play.
Do not wear that outfit again. But if you want to keep your speed, because I want to